All right, I'm logged into my Azure subscription. So let's validate whether we have our data sources sending logs to Sentinel or sending logs to Log Analytics workspace. Then the Sentinel part comes. Is everyone able to see my screen?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, before we do that, we were, I believe when we left the session yesterday, we were enabling one additional connector for Azure Active Directory. So let's enable those connectors and then we will go ahead with the validation part. So can somebody share the screen and say one of the participants so that I can help you enable, because I already have enabled in my workspace. Vishal, you were doing it yesterday. If you want, you can do it now. Vishal?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Let me share my screen.
Yeah.
Oh, is my screen visible to you?
Yeah, it is visible. Okay. So let's navigate to Sentinel. Okay. Let's navigate to Content Hub. All of you, please do the same thing in your respective subscription. Okay, in the Content Hub, let's look for Azure Active Directory solution.
This one? Okay.
Right. So select Azure Active Directory. Now stay here. So guys, this is what you need to look for. You need to look for Azure Active Directory solution, and you will need to hit install, because what happens, a solution contains, so the solution contains all the capabilities that Sentinel brings, or that specific solution brings. So solution comprises of analytics rules, it comprises of data connectors, it comprises of playbooks, it comprises of workbook, it comprises of other capabilities. So we will install the solution and then we will be able to configure the solution as well as the data connector, which is part of the solution, after completing the installation. So let's install the solution. Okay, now we are installing this solution. Now it already says, note there may be known issues pertaining to this solution. Please refer to them before installing. So those known issues are basically the synchronization. Sometimes Azure Active Directory is not able to send all the logs to Sentinel, or there are synchronization issue in the connector. At times it happens, because of which you do not receive all the logs. So that's what it is trying to say, and Microsoft is working towards improving it. So solution is installed now. Once the solution is installed, you will see the status also as installed. Now, if you want to see how many solutions you have installed, you can click on the status. On the top that it says status, you can filter the status. No, status, yeah, and click on installed only. Check the installed one. That way you will see all the solutions which are installed. So we have only installed this solution. There is one more solution which is you need to remove that from the search bar. You've written Azure AC. Yeah. So we did install Microsoft Defender for Cloud yesterday, and we are installing Azure Active Directory today. So you can filter and you can see for information, because inside Content Hub you will get a lot of information. It is overwhelming, and at times you only want to look for specific. So that is where you can use the filters. Okay. Now, once the solution is installed, you will need to select the solution and select manage, so that you will go inside the solution and you will see what all it comprises. So hit manage. Now inside manage, you will see what all capabilities it brings on the table and how many of them have you installed, are you using, all of that you see there. So you can see there are 73 installed I'm saying 73 contents which are installed. However, 71 configuration needed, which means you will need to do configuration for 71. So, and you will always find on the top is the connector, data connector. So select the data connector and first enable the connector. Yeah. So when you click on data connector, it will always say open connector page. Click on the connector, open connector page. Now on this page, you will also see the current status of connector, whether it is connected or disconnected. And if the connector is connected, then underneath you will also see some data flowing in. So right now, if you look down, you will not see any data. It says 00000. Why? Because the connector status is not connected. So we will need to connect it. Now, for this, I'm saying for this connection, for Azure Active Directory connector, you will need to log in using your account admin credentials, because your account admin credentials also have global administrator access on Azure Active Directory. If you use your cloud identities, which is users that we created the other day, whether it's Sentinel admin or Sentinel operations, you will not be able to configure this connector because those users do not have global administrator access on Azure Active Directories. So for this, you will be using your own account admin credentials, or you will need to grant global admin credentials to your Sentinel admin security group so that the members can also do this. But we do not recommend granting global admin credentials to an identity unless and until it is explicitly needed. Okay, so you can see the prerequisites. It is all green, which says you have read and write permission on the workspace. Diagnostic settings, you have read and write permission, and tenant permissions. You also have global administrator or security administrator role on this workspace tenant. All right, when it comes to the configuration, in order to stream sign-in logs from Azure Active Directory, your users must have P1 and P2 license assigned. So it says in order to export sign-in data, your organization needs Azure AD P1 or P2 license. So we already have taken trial for P2, which means we are good here and we should be able to receive sign-in logs. Okay. The other trick here is that sign-in logs will only come for those users who have the licenses assigned to their identity. It is not that you have purchased P2 and you are not assigning it P2 or P1 and you're not assigning it to identities. No, you will need to have identities assigned P1 or P2 license. Then only sign-in logs from those identities will be reflecting into Sentinel. So you need to make sure that if you have 100 identities, they should have at least P1 or P2 license assigned. Otherwise, this connector will not work properly. Second thing, earlier we would only have capability in this connector to export sign-in logs. But now Microsoft has added more capability. However, that capability is in preview. Except the audit logs, rest of the capabilities you can see they are in preview. So when I say they are in preview, it basically means there is no guarantee whether you will be able to receive data, whether you will receive accurate data, whether you will receive complete or partial data. There is no guarantee. This is something which is in preview. So there is a team who is currently working on to improve this capability. And once it is 100% improved, then the service will come into GA and this preview word will be removed, against the service. Then you can get the confidence, get the peace of mind that yes, it will work. And if it doesn't, you have Microsoft to support you. Right now, Microsoft will not support you. So let's enable audit logs. Okay. Now you can see some additional logs like user risky events, risky users. These will not work. This will not work because you have not configured conditional access. This requires conditional access to be configured. So even if you enable these logs, for example, ADFS sign-in logs. Now, if you're not using ADFS service, which is Active Directory Federation service, single sign-on, then even if you have configured these logs, you are just configuring the instructions, but no log will flow in because there will be no log because you don't have that service configured. So right now we will only configure sign-in logs and audit logs because rest of them are in preview and we don't want to try any service which is in preview because it may not work properly. So click on apply changes now. Okay. So when you apply changes, it is applied quickly. The status of the connector will start to show as connected in some time. It shows not connected. That's okay. I have done this 100 times so far. So I know it will start to show as connected within the next few minutes. So now that you have applied changes, it works successfully. We are done. We'll come back to the screen probably after 10 minutes and you will see the status connected. We're not creating any rules that we will do next week. This week we have reserved for the engineering activities. Okay, so this is connected. Now you also see some additional connectors like activity log. But activity log we are already receiving. So you will see some additional connectors or solutions against some other services. However, we have already enabled it. So should we enable the solution? Yes, we will need to install the solution. Then only we'll be able to configure the analytics rule against that solution. So now look for activity log. It's right underneath Azure Active Directory. So this is the additional that we are installing here. Now install activity log also. Activity log is installed. Now you will see the connector for activity log, Azure Activity or activity log. You will see the connector. What is the status of the connector? It says connected or not connected. Nothing, right? It doesn't say anything. But if you go back to your data connector screen, you will see activity log is connected. Go back to the data connector screen. Yep, over here, stay here, and you will see Azure Activity is connected, right? And we never enabled this connector. What we did, we only enabled diagnostic logs from Azure Activity to the log analytics workspace, which is connected to Sentinel. And when we did that, this connector already started to show as connected. However, in the solution, now go back to the solution for activity log.
In Content Hub?
Yeah, in Content Hub, absolutely. So when I say solution, I will always mean Content Hub. And navigate to Azure Activity. It's fourth from the top. Yep. Manage. Okay, over here. Now, if you see, click on the data connector. The first one, Azure Activity. Okay. See, it is directly, no, you need to select it, basically, not click on it. Go back to the previous page. Yeah, select the connector. Yeah, and click on Open Connector page. Now stay here. Now you can see here that the connector status is already connected. The data is already streaming in because you see that number 585. So in Sentinel, for some of the connectors, they will automatically show as connected when the respective actions have taken, when you have already been taken. Now, when you enable a connector, what basically happens? Connector is nothing but an automation, a logic app in the backend. So what basically happens when you enable connector, it has certain instructions. Those instructions will be executed. So when you have just enabled, let's say, Active Directory connector, what has happened? There are some instructions in the backend. Those instructions say that from this moment onward, we will need audit logs and sign-in logs to be ingested into the log analytics workspace. That's what the instructions were. And those instructions were executed when you enabled the connector. You could have done that manually also. The way we have enabled Azure Activity connector, when we navigated to Azure Activity, we clicked on Export Activity Logs. We enabled diagnostic logs and selected the log analytics workspace. That's exactly what happens behind the scene when you enable a connector. So that is why when you have done something manually, when you already are ingesting logs in log analytics workspace connected to Sentinel manually, the connector status will automatically show as connected and it will automatically show as installed. If it doesn't show as installed or connected, but you know that the logs are getting ingested and that you will know from the KQL queries, you will know that it is working fine. Now, these are some most common troubleshooting or common issues that we come across during deployment. So when we are deploying Sentinel, when we are implementing Sentinel, the team who is in charge of doing the implementation, they come across these issues. They're confused because the connector status doesn't show as connected. So they get confused and they are not able to share this information in the report to the management that they need to share probably once in a week, or let's say at the end of the day every day, in terms of what progress that they do. So they're not able to confirm it confidently, and that is where they connect with the architects, the seniors, and they request for guidance, they request for support. And we as an architect, when we look into it, we are able to validate that it is just a synchronization issue. You can put that into the report as completed because we are receiving the logs. Now, maybe on this window, you will not see the logs. So after we are done with this, I will share a couple of KQL queries with you using which you can query the logs. And if the logs are getting ingested, even though the connector status says not connected or anything, forget about it. Don't bother about it. Nothing but synchronization issue. It will get fixed automatically within a couple of minutes, may take a couple of hours, and it may take a couple of days also. I've seen that happening also. And if it happens, you just need to take a screenshot and support and raise a support request with Microsoft, showing them the screenshot that you are receiving data. However, the connector status is still showing as not connected. In that case, Microsoft will fix it from the backend. They will fix it from the backend, and you will start to see that connector status is connected. So this also happened in the past, wherein you need to be 100% confident of the steps that you have taken, and those steps were accurate, and then don't bother about anything, even if things do not show as connected, because they are working in the backend. So that's the one thing that I wanted to bring to your notice, that we never enabled this connector, but the status of this connector shows as connected because we enabled the activity log manually in the backend. Now, same is the case with another connector. Go back to the content solution and look for storage account. No, I'm saying when I say solution, Content Hub, go to Content Hub and look for storage account solution. There's a solution with the name storage account also. Okay, Azure Storage. So this is another solution. Let's install this Azure Storage. Look for Azure Storage. Yep, the second one. Install this solution also. Why are we installing solutions? So that we get access to the analytics rule, the workbooks, the playbooks, and whatnot. That is why we are installing the solution. So we have installed activity log solution, sorry, Azure Activity solution. We have completed Azure Active Directory, and now we are installing Azure Storage. Okay, now you can see in this solution, you don't have any analytics rule, you don't have any workbook, playbook. Or storage account connector. So select the connector. And let's click on Open Connector page. And see, it already shows as connected. Why? Because we did that backend work already yesterday. We enabled diagnostic logs of our storage accounts, and we enabled those diagnostic logs to a workspace which is connected to the Sentinel. So we were doing all that part yesterday and day before. So this is also showing us connected, and we are good with this. Into the connector page. Why? Because we have not installed the solution. You will only see a connector status as connected. Now go back to the connector page, data connectors, under configuration. One page before. Okay, now click on data connectors. Okay, over here. Now this is what you need to remember here. Over here, you will only whom you have installed the solution. So now that you have enabled Azure storage account, it has started to reflect here. So only those connectors which are part of a solution, if the solution is installed, you will start to see the connector. Okay, so this is what you need to remember. So there are synchronization gaps in the portal as we speak that I can see. You all can see that you've enabled it, but it is not showing. It is showing, but you have not done that. So don't bother about it. This is just a product. It will go through a lot of improvements. Microsoft has just changed the UI. So because of that change, few things are not working as expected, but we are just into the implementation phase. Very soon it will all be fixed. Okay, so very soon you will start to see your now you can see Azure storage account is connected, but Azure Active Directory is not. So Azure Active Directory takes time, but it will be done. I know that there is nothing else that you need to do. It will be done in some time. So probably in next 1 hour, you will see all 5 connectors as connected, including Azure Active Directory also. Great. So we are good with this. Let's see if there is any connector with the name virtual network. So go to Content Hub once again and look for virtual network. No, type network. Okay. Network session, Azure DDoS, Azure. Okay, network security group. That's what I wanted to look for. Network security group. Azure network security group is the connector that I'm looking for, or is the solution that I'm looking for. Now, so what is Azure network security group? Azure network security group acts as a virtual firewall. It is front-ending an Azure subnet as well as an Azure virtual machine. Any traffic that needs to go inside subnet or go inside the virtual machine has to go through this virtual firewall. It contains inbound and outbound rules, and it will filter that traffic based on the port. So it's like a port filtering firewall. So it will filter the traffic based on the ports. If in the rule, NSG rule, you have configured the port, it will allow, otherwise it will deny. Question, can we, in the search, can we type network security group, or maybe duplicate the tab so that we can come back to this tab later and type network security group. No, now in the search, I want you to navigate to network security group. Yep, in the main search. Yep. Okay, select network security group. Okay. Now these are the network security groups. With every virtual machine that you provision, a network security group is provisioned by default. Now click on any of the network security group. Okay. Now inside the network security group, you have inbound rules and outbound rules. Let's try and understand these rules. Right now, since this is a Linux VM, you can see inbound rule. The rule priority is 300, the first rule from the top. The name is SSH, port is 22, protocol is TCP, source is any, destination is any, action is allowed. So what does this rule mean? This rule basically means that all the traffic from any source, when I say any means internet. Any means internet as well as internal traffic. So any traffic on port 22 TCP will be able to pass through this virtual machine because the action is allowed. That's what NSG contains. Similarly, NSG contains outbound rules also. At the bottom, you see outbound rules also. There are default rules. You have not specifically mentioned any rule, but you can mention outbound rules like you can block any specific port outbound to internet. You can block the entire internet. There are capabilities that which is front-ending are virtual machines, and every traffic destined for the virtual machine has to go through that firewall. Every traffic that leaves from that virtual machine, which is the outbound traffic, also has to go through the NSG. If it satisfies the NSG's rule, then it will be allowed, otherwise it will be dropped. So NSG is very critical when it comes to network monitoring, because even if your network is compromised, even if you don't have a firewall, I'm saying the proper Azure firewall or a next gen firewall, which you configure at the perimeter in the DMZ zone, even if you don't have it, NSG will be there by default, protecting your virtual machine resources which are hosting the application. If you have a firewall, network virtual appliance, next generation firewall, it's an additional layer of security. Then NSG is an additional layer of security because your primary layer will be that firewall. So that's what NSG is all about, which makes it very critical for you to ingest logs from NSGs, because here you can get some intelligence in terms of logs which are denied, any traffic which is denied, why it is denied, what was the purpose of that traffic, was it internal or internet, was it coming from internal resource or it was from an internet based resource? If yes, then what was the public IP? Was that public IP not listed into threat list? So a lot of questions will come to your mind, and to answer those questions, you have this solution enabled in Sentinel, so that Sentinel will basically take care of all of this. Okay, so let's go back to the Sentinel window and let's enable Azure Network Security Group also. Go to the first tab. In the first tab, you have that Azure Network Security Group. Let's install it also. Once this is installed, let's click on it. And click on Manage. Okay. So when you click on Manage, you will see that this solution only contains a connector. So let's click on the connector and let's enable this connector. Now, in order to enable this connector, you will need to create an Azure policy, because Azure Sentinel also works with Azure policy, which is known as policy as code. So sometimes it needs a policy configuration to be able to do its job. Now you can see when you enable this connector, what will happen? You can gather the following type of resources log information. You can gather the event and you will gather the rule counter. So that's what you will gather. So we will need to click on Launch Azure Policy Assignment Wizard at the bottom, and we will need to create a policy. That's it. So how do we create a policy? First, we will need to select the scope. on the top that what will be the scope of this policy. So click on those three dots, the three blue, yep, and select the scope as subscription. Don't choose a resource group. Why? Because if you choose a resource group, then it will only be applied to that resource group. However, I want this to be applied to my entire subscription. So after you select the subscriptions, hit select at the bottom. So your subscription, your scope is selected. And then on the screen, you don't need to make any changes. Just move on to the next screen. On the next screen, there is no changes that you need to do. Just move on to the next screen, third one. And this is where you need to configure. So this is where you need to instruct that where exactly logs from network security group needs to be sent to. And this is where you will need to select your log analytics workspace, which is attached or connected to Sentinel. So select the log analytics workspace, which is connected to Sentinel. Is that the one, Rishant, which is connected to Sentinel, test Sentinel DXE?
Yes, correct.
Oh, all right. And after that, you don't need to do anything. Just continue, because it will automatically pick up a role which will give its permission on which will give it monitoring contributor and log analytics contributor permission. So it will automatically pick up it. And then non-compliance message. We typically type non-compliance message when we want to restrict users from executing a specific action. But since this is a policy and which is supported for Sentinel, we'll not put any message. We'll directly hit review plus create. And we will hit create. So all we needed to do was to provide a log analytics workspace information to this policy so that it will know that from this moment onward, it has to put every log into that, every log which gets generated at the NSG level into that workspace. That's it. So role assignment creation successful. Okay. So once it is successful, it will also start to show as connected in some time. However, you can validate by navigating to policy service and check whether that policy has been created. So let's go to policy in the search bar, type policy. Okay, policy and open policy. The policy is another security service in Azure which feeds data to Sentinel. And here you will see that policy that you have just created. Refresh. I don't see that policy yet. Refresh the page. Now, where you see all the policies, click on View All. At the bottom, you see View All. Yeah. Do you see that policy here? Yep, it is there from third from bottom. Third from bottom, you can see. Third from bottom. Yep. Configure diagnostic log settings for Azure Network Security Groups to Log Analytics Workspace, which is great. And you can see the policy, the overall resource compliance is 100%. However, the compliance status, it says policy not started, which means you've just enabled this policy. Policy has a refresh interval. Within next couple of hours, this policy compliance status will be compliant. And then the data from network security groups will start to ingest into the log analytics workspace. So that's what. So this is how we configure policies in some of the cases where you do not have direct connection option. So here you will see all the policies. Okay. Great. So we have enabled this also. Let's move on. Let's go back to the Sentinel screen. And let's click on data connectors and see whether these connectors are showing. Okay, great. So Nishant, Vishant, if you notice, your Azure Active Directory is showing as connected. So as I said, it takes time. It takes 10, 15, 20 minutes, 1 hour, but it will show as connected because you have taken care of the all required steps. So it was just a matter of time. Things will not execute instantly in Azure. It's a known issue, and you just need to know, you just need to have patience. Okay. Now your network security group is not showing as connected. It will start to show in some time when that policy status shows as started or in use. So which will take another couple of minutes, maybe an hour, but it will start to show as connected. Great. So we are good with this. We have enabled some connector. Let me see if there are any additional connectors that we would like to enable that will make sense. I'm saying that we have access to this training because see, this is a lab environment. It will have its own limitations. You can try and make it as closer as possible to a production environment, but it will not be a production environment because you will not have, log sources coming from on-premises. A lot of capabilities will not be there. So whatever is available, we will basically make use of it. Okay. So just give me a moment here. All right. Now let's click on the provider. Do you see an option that says provider? I'm say filter. On the filter, please look for Microsoft. Just filter for Microsoft. Let's see how many, if there is anything in the Microsoft world which is left that we can configure here. Now, Azure Active Directory, we have configured, activity, we have configured, DNS. Unless and until you have DNS service enabled, there is no point of configuring it. Log4j vulnerability not needed. Microsoft 365 Defender not needed because we have not enabled that service. Defender we have enabled, so we have configured it. Network session essential. Can you click on that? Network session essential. I want to see what it is. Is a domain solution that does not include any data connector. The container. Okay, it does not include any connectors. Leave it. SAP we don't need it. Security threat essential. Can you click on that? Okay. Okay, it does not also have any connector. Leave it. Sentinel Store Essential. I believe this will be for Logic App. Okay, it contains playbook. We will enable it later. We are just focusing on connector right now. It doesn't have any connector. Scroll it down. Threat intelligence. We'll do it. It doesn't have it. Okay, leave it. Then comes attacker tools threat protection essential. Can you click that attacker tool threat protection essential? Okay, it does not also have connector. Leave it. Scroll it down. Azure Active Directory identity protection. Okay, so this is the so remember when we were enabling Azure Active Directory connector, there was an option that says risky user and risky sign-in. What Microsoft is going to do very soon, Microsoft will deprecate this connector, and it has already included that capability in preview in the other connector, main connector. As soon as that capability comes into GA in that connector, this connector will be deprecated. Microsoft will not have this connector showing anymore because the capability is going there. So this connector basically uh, ingests security alerts reported in Azure AD with respect to risky users events and risky sign-in events. So since we have not enabled conditional access, even if we enable this connector, it will hardly make any sense. But let's enable this connector also. So let's install it. Probably if we have some time, I will show you how to configure conditional access. All right, once that is installed, let's click on the connector because it contains one connector, one analytics rule, and 5 playbooks. So we'll go to the connector and we will open the connector page and configure the connector. Now you can see here, it says first prerequisites. You have all the prerequisites met. You have Azure AD Premium P2 license. You have global admin permissions, and you have read and write permission on the workspace. So prerequisites are met. All you need to do is hit connect. That's it. So connect Azure Active Directory identity protection to Microsoft Sentinel. You just need to hit connect. It will validate and it will be connected. Done. It will be connected in real time. Why it is connected in real time? Because it is using the previous connector in the backend, the one that we have already configured, which is showing as connect. Okay, so we are done with this connector also. Let's come back to the content hub. Let's see any connector, any additional connector from Microsoft space we can connect that we will have access to. So once again, so after Azure Active Directory, we have batch account, leave it, cognitive search. We don't use these services. DevOps, leave it, event hub, leave it, Azure firewall, leave it because we are not provisioning this service. Information protection, leave it, keyword, node needed, Kubernetes. Azure Logic App you can connect. So what it will do, it will send diagnostic logs from Logic App to Microsoft Sentinel service. Now you can either, because we don't create multiple Logic apps, you can either install the connector from here and connect and initiate the connector, or you can directly go to your respective Logic app and from the dashboard, from the overview blade, under monitoring, you will see an option that says diagnostic settings. You can enable diagnostic settings from there also. The moment you enable it from there, the status of the connector will start to show as connected as soon as you install the solution. So both options are there. Yeah, go to diagnostic settings here. Here you will see the same information. It is the same process. So you can click on add diagnostic settings, and here you can select all logs, only the logs, not the matrices. There is no point of doing it. And you can give it a name and select the log analytics workspace. So this is the other way of achieving the same.
exited.
Okay. Now, what is the benefit of this connector? See, if you connect this connector, if you configure this connector, then it will be applicable to all the Azure logic apps that you have as we speak, that you will provision in future also. But if you do it from the manual method, then you will need to do it for all the logic apps one after another individually. That's the only benefit that it brings on the table. So let's configure this connector also. Now it says data connector not found. I'm also getting the same error on my screen, which means there are some issue with this connector. And this is a new connector that they've recently released. So there are some issues. It says when we click on open connector page, we get a pop-up which says the data connector that corresponds to the data type Azure Logic App could not be found. So leave it, guys. I said there are some issues with this connector. We would rather go with the manual approach of enabling diagnostic logs from each logic app that we create. That will do the same thing. So I think we are done with all the Microsoft connectors. That is all that we wanted to connect. No non-Microsoft connector we would like to connect here. So we are good with this.
When my logic app did actually go through and work after a refresh, should I just configure it through that screen?
For you like that?
Yeah, I just had to click refresh after I clicked on it.
Okay. We will see and see if it works. It could be regional issue also. Okay. After refreshing, it seems it is working. So once it starts to work, all it needs, it will also create a policy that will enable ingestion of diagnostic logs from all logic apps to a specific workspace. That's what it is going to do. Okay, it still says not found for you, Vishan. You just need to refresh it a number of times and it should work. You might want to sign out and sign back in. Okay, it's working now. So what you will need to do here, you will create a policy that will enable diagnostic logs of all the logic apps into that specific workspace. So select your subscription. Select the log analytics workspace where you want to ingest logs and just hit next. It will provision the role itself. No compliance message. Next and do it.
Let's extend now.
Yeah, it's done. Okay. All right. So we are good. We have got these connectors also. The network security group and logic app will take time to show us because any connector that you enable through Azure policy will only show as enabled when that policy is in use, when that policy gets started. The compliance state of that policy. So unless that policy is started, the policy started to work, it will not show you. You just need to wait and then it will start to work also. Okay. So this is all about connectors that we wanted to enable. We are good with these connectors. They are more than sufficient for this training. I will also show you how to enable the AWS One non-cloud in my on my screen because I have access to an AWS account. So that is just for your understanding purpose, so that you can see how it works and probably when you have access to an AWS account, you can follow the same steps and you can also configure it in that manner. That's what I will show you. So let me take control now. You can stop sharing. Okay. Hope my screen is visible to everyone.
Yes, it's visible.
Okay. Great. So I will navigate to Content Hub once again. All right. Now the first connector that you see here on the top is Amazon Web Services. It comes in alphabetical order. That's why you see it there. So we'll install this solution. You can also install the solution. There is no harm in installing the solution. It's just that you will not be able to configure the data connector. And if you wish to configure, I would request you to get a free trial account, free tier account on AWS. That would only need you to provide some information and a valid payment method from which it will deduct $1 and give it back to you. And you will have access to a free trial account from AWS. AWS doesn't provide sponsorship passes, else we would have given, procured it for you. So it's very easy to sign up. You can just type AWS free trial. And here you can go for it. So that way you can explore AWS services as well. You just click on create a free account. Here, I'll share the URL with you. Okay. So here you can create a free tier account. You just need to provide an email address. That email address will become the root account similar to account admin in Azure, and you will have access to AWS. You just need to provide your root user email address, the name of the account that you want to keep, verify that email address. It will send you a code in that email address that you need to type, and you are done. So very simple to sign up with AWS. Okay. So once you are done with that, let's see how do we connect AWS. So I've just installed the solution, Amazon Web Services. I'll hit manage. And here I've got two connectors. You can see two connectors, 36 hunting queries, 54 analytics rule, 2 workbooks. So these are the two connectors. One is for Amazon Web Services. The other is for Amazon Web Services S3 bucket. Now, Amazon Web Services S3 bucket was the first connector that they launched. Because initially, Microsoft Sentinel would only be able to connect with S3 bucket, and it can actually capture the logs from S3 bucket via CloudTrail, which is the logging service in AWS, similar to Azure Activity. And it would only work with S3. Then Microsoft had more integration in place with Amazon, and they also launched Amazon Web Services. So we have got two connectors. Now, similarly, if I go to Microsoft Defender for Cloud, which is also a multi-cloud. See, Sentinel is multi-cloud, multi-tenant Siemens source solution. It doesn't mean that you can deploy Sentinel in AWS or in GCP or in any other cloud. It means that you can ingest logs from other than Microsoft Cloud, from resources and services, workloads and applications outside of Azure. That's what makes it multi-cloud. Now, if I go to Microsoft Defender for Cloud that we enabled some times ago, Defender is also a multi-cloud solution. It's a multi-cloud CSPM solution because it has the capability to integrate with AWS and GCP, which is outside of Azure. So you can see here, you have one Azure subscription, 0 AWS account, 0 GCP projects. So you can actually integrate your AWS and GCP, AWS account and GCP projects into Defender. And then Defender will be able to assess the configuration of those resources and will be able to tell whether they are complying with regulatory standards and compliances or the best practices. So if I want to add Amazon, I'll just click on add AWS account. Here I type the connector name, select whether I want to add a management account that contains multiple AWS accounts or a single account. Then the region, all of this information I need to fill in. Then I'll go to the next stage, which is plan. For example, I fill in here MDC AWS connector. Select a single account, select the resource group, and then I will need to type the account ID also. Account ID is a 12-digit number. So I've just typed the generic ID and from the keyboard, it has accepted it because Azure will accept it whatever you type. It will do the validation on the next step. So now you will select the plan that what you want to do with AWS and what kind of protection from Defender you want to enable for AWS. So you can see the foundation CSPM, the basic CSPM is free of cost. However, for Defender CSPM, which is the advanced CSPM, you will need to pay $5 per delivered resource per month until this date, because you have free plan till this date. And then if you want to protect your AWS EC2 instances, AWS RDS databases, AWS Elastic Container Service, then you also can enable this. So this is where you enable the plan. And now this is where you do the configuration. So it will give you a template, a CloudFormation template that will contain the permissions that Defender needs from AWS account. You will need to download the template and create a stack in CloudFormation, upload this template there, and it will provision all the required permissions. Once that template is installed successfully, you will need to come back to the screen, and on the screen you will need to hit review and generate. When you hit review and generate, and if you have configured that template completely, then these are the permissions in the template that Defender would need. So it would need an IAM role with the name CSPM monitor AWS. It would need all of these IAM roles to basically manage the services that you have selected in the previous tab, which is select plans. So since you've selected servers, it would need a role on the server also. So it would create these many roles, and then you will hit create, and your AWS account will be connected. And these roles are only view only roles. You're not asking for any administrative access from AWS. You're only asking for view only access so that you can read the resource configuration from AWS, and you can ingest that configuration into Defender, who will then analyze the configuration and decide whether that configuration is as per the best practices, whether that configuration aligns with foundation security benchmarks of AWS. So that's how you do the connection. Now, when you do the connection, you will only be able to do the CSPM capability. It will not give you Sentinel capability. Though the Defender's log, though Defender is integrated with Sentinel, it doesn't mean that Defender will send logs for AWS. No, it will not be able to do that because it would only have configurations available. There is absolutely no integration with CloudTrail service here. CloudTrail is the service that stores the logs, and those logs needs to be streamed to Sentinel. Then only it will work. So this is only for the CSPM capability. Now coming back to the Sentinel part, when you enable AWS, you're configuring these two connectors. So let's first connect the AWS Web Services connector. So we'll select this connector and we'll open the connector page, and let's see what configuration it would need. So here's the connector. It says prerequisites. Yes, you have it. Now this is about AWS. It says connect AWS CloudTrail with Microsoft Sentinel. So it is connecting the CloudTrail here, and CloudTrail will contain all the logs. So all the logs will start to flow into Sentinel, and Sentinel will be able to tell by analyzing a log whether there could be a probable security incident or misconfiguration. So it says the connection necessitates giving Microsoft permissions to access your AWS account. To enable this, follow the instruction under connect AWS account to Sentinel and use these parameters when prompted. Data from all regions will be sent to and stored in the workspace region. It takes about 5 minutes until the connection streams data to your workspace. This is your Microsoft account ID. This is your external workspace ID. And this is where you need to add a role. So it says place your AWS role ARN here. So you will basically need to so you basically need to create a role in AWS and get the ARN of that role, which is the universally, which has an FQDN like this, ARN AWS account, this role. And once you add that role here, then it will connect. So it will basically send instructions to, it will validate whether that role exists, whether that role contains the specific permission, and it will work. So let's see what instructions do we have. So here's the instructions. So we'll directly go to prerequisites. It says make sure that the logs from your selected services use the format accepted by Sentinel. So this is the format that Sentinel accepts. And yes, the logs will come in this format only. It says connect the S3 connector. So you're not connecting the S3. Automatic setup, leave it. Not this one. Here's the role that they are creating. Okay, this is the role. Select S3 in the data connectors gallery. This is basically they are creating for S3. I'm just trying to see what is the permission that they need on the role basically. So they're creating a role, an AWS account, workspace ID. Okay, so what permissions are they given? And then add permission, add permission and enter a tag optional. So they are not specifying what permission they are given. Okay, leave that part. Let me connect to AWS. I'll just show you how it works. The only thing that we will need to be careful about is the level of permission. We can grant it read-only permission, and that will also work. So I'll log into AWS. Into AWS account, all I need to do is navigate to IAM here. Okay, and in the IAM, I need to click on roles. I will need to click on create role, a new role, and here I will select the service. So it says AWS account. I'll select another account, and this account ID I'll get from Microsoft here. This is the account ID because we are doing it for this account so that only this account can use that role. So I'll copy the account ID and I'll put the account ID here. That's it. Next, then I'll select the permission, that what level of permission I want to grant to this role. Now, let's say we are creating this role, and the purpose of this role is to get the logs from CloudTrail service. So probably I want to grant CloudTrail permission. So I'll select AWS CloudTrail read-only access because I'm following the principle of least privilege. So I will select AWS CloudTrail read-only access for this role. And if I want to get, I'm saying at the max, if I want to get information from other services of AWS, which this connector can do, which this connector can bring, then there is another role which is view only access that I can do. So I'll type view only access. Here's the role. Now this is the reader access on AWS. So I can select this role also. Now this connector that I'm creating, AWS connector will be able to read the configuration of all AWS services, whichever this connector has the capability to analyze, and it will get the logs from there. So I've selected two roles you can see here. Now I'll put the role name as Microsoft Sentinel connector. That's it. Permissions, you can see view only access and CloudTrail read only access. I've just taken read only permissions. No excessive permission I'm taking from AWS, which means if you are in the process of deploying Sentinel for a customer who is a multi-cloud customer, and they also want logs from AWS and GCP to come into Sentinel so that they can also analyze those logs, this is the bare minimum permission that you would need. You would not need any administrative access. You would only need read-only access so that the logs can be read and they can be sent. So you will create this role. Now the role is created. Search for this role. This is the role. And copy the ARN from here. This is the role ARN, which is the Azure resource name. Just copy the ARN and put the ARN here. Done. That is all that you need to do. And add the ARN. It's validating whether that ARN exists. See, it has validated that yes, this ARN exists, and it has added it. That's it. That's the only configuration that you needed to do. Now soon this will start to show as connected. So this is how we configure the AWS connector. Now this was only for the AWS connector, which was basically for the CloudTrail because it was using CloudTrail. However, if you want to configure the other connector that you have, then it would require you to do some steps, which is already there here. This is the S3 connector if you want to configure it. That says you need to provide all of this information. So you basically need to provide the ARN, you need to provide the SQS URL, queue service URL, and the destination table where it will do. So you need to provide these three pieces of information. And how do you get it? The option is here. This article basically starts with S3 only. So here it has the information that how you will do the connector. So it says that you will need to create a simple queue service first. You will need to create that service and you will need to do the setup. Once that service is created, you will also need to create a role. So once you have the queue service created, put the queue service role ARN here, queue service URL here, and the destination table, you need to put it from here. That where exactly in which table the logs will be kept. So you can put the destination table like AWS CloudWatch. So now the logs will be kept into the CloudWatch, and from CloudWatch, Sentinel will read the logs, and Sentinel will basically analyze those logs and show you the results here. So that's what you need to do, and the article gives you step-by-step information to configure it. So this is how we configure the S3. Any question on this, guys?
So maybe it's not related exactly on this point, but currently we are doing AWS integration with ArcSight. So like CloudTrail, there is a connector, but for basic like local virtual machines, Windows and Linux machines in the AWS, like for Linux, it is pretty easy, like it's a push method. So, but for Windows machines, it is auto scaling environment in AWS. So we facing difficulties like there is no proper host names or IP address to add into Windows connector in ArcSight. So in this case, if you want to integrate Windows machines hosted in AWS environment into Sentinel, so how it will be?
If you want to integrate Windows machine only, then I'm saying both Windows and Linux, you can use Log Analytics agent. Just download the agent from here. I am saying Azure Monitor agent is not supported. That's what we saw yesterday. So all you need this. You need this. You just need this agent. If it is Windows, you need the agent for Windows. If it is Linux, you need this agent. Just get the agent, workspace ID and primary key, deploy the agent, and the logs from that EC2 instance will start to ingest into the log analytics workspace. That I can show you after the break. I can quickly provision an EC2 instance and show you. Now your question was specific on the virtual machine skill sets. So virtual machine skill sets, you will find a challenge. Why? Because in virtual machine skill sets, you will have primary skill set, which means a one or two virtual machines, which is part of the skill set. And then the additional virtual machines will get provisioned as and when the load on the application increases based on certain threshold that you have configured into the skill sets. So those additional virtual machines, additional EC2 instances that get provisioned, you will not be able to get logs from them because they are temporary. You will only be able to get logs from the skill set, the EC2 instance, which are permanent, because when you provision a skill set, you decide the initial set. I'm saying initial 2 virtual machines, 3 virtual machines, and then you configure the threshold that when this threshold reaches, depending on the load, when there is a specific load which increases the threshold CPU and memory, or the threshold and the application, provision more instances. So those additional instances that you will provision as part of skill set configuration may not be reporting into Sentinel or ArcSight, but as far as the initial architecture goes, you should be able to configure that in ArcSight also. Now, how ArcSight can configure it, I don't have that visibility, that whether it uses agent or what. If this would have been Splunk or QRadar, I would have given you the information that how it works, because I've worked with those two solutions. I've not worked with ArcSight, so I don't know. But as far as Sentinel goes, this is what you need to do. Just download the agent, install it, and your machine will start to reflect in Sentinel within few minutes. So that I can do when we resume from break. Let me show you how do we ingest logs from AWS EC2 instances. So I have just provisioned an EC2 instance in my AWS account. I'll connect to that instance now. So this is the instance which is up and running. I'll connect to the instance. This is how we connect to an instance in AWS. You need the RDP file and you need the password. So I'll double click on the RDP file. Here's the RDP file. It needs password. The username is administrator by default in AWS. And the password I will need to get by providing the key pair, a private key that I create. So I'll provide the key. And it will decrypt the password. Here's the password. I'll take this password and I'll connect. So I'm taking remote of my AWS EC2 instance. Okay, I've got the remote. Now, once I'm inside the instance, once I'm at the OS layer, then it probably makes no difference whether it's an EC2 instance, whether it's a compute engine in GCP, whether it's a physical server, whether it's a VMware or Hyper-V virtual machine, and where exactly it is configured. It hardly makes any difference because once you're inside the VM. Now, inside the VM, all I need is that software. So how do I get that software? I will probably install, I'm saying if I upload that software, it will take time. So I will get it installed here itself. So first I'll open, these are some of the configuration steps that you need to do on a server. So Internet Explorer bothers a lot. I'm just turning off the security of it. Open Internet Explorer. Okay. Portal.azure.com. If the EC2 instance is joined to your domain, you can push the installation from using System Center, using Software Center. There are multiple options to do that. But since this instance is not joined to my domain, it's a workgroup instance, workgroup server, I would need to open the portal here and download the agent directly because the agent size is more than 100 MBs. If I just upload it from my local system, it will take a couple of minutes. Now that's the other challenge. Microsoft Portal doesn't work on Internet Explorer anymore. So I actually need Google Chrome here. Now, if I had conditional access enabled on my identity, it would have considered this as an anomaly because I'm logging into my Azure portal from US now. This machine is in North California. So basically, somebody is trying to use this identity, and this is an account admin identity, a critical identity, and somebody is using this identity in North California, in US. While the identity belongs to India, the usage location for this identity is India. So if conditional access was enabled in Azure Active Directory, this would have thrown an anomaly, and probably it would either not allow this identity to log in on this VM, I'm saying in Azure portal from US, or it would throw an additional factor authentication, MFA, or it would ask you to reset the password based on the policies that you have configured in the conditional access. So since conditional access is not configured, it is allowing me to log in. So I'm logged into the portal now. So Yogesh, are you there in the session?
Yes, I am here. Yeah.
Something unusual I noticed yesterday. I'll show you first. So here is my log analytics workspace. And here. Okay, so here's my log analytics workspace. I'll show you something here. See, yesterday what we did. So right now we are not using log analytics agent at all. We are using Azure Monitor agent for this deployment, right? Now, what has happened? I also added my laptop. I'm saying I also have configured Azure Monitor agent on my laptop. You can see it here. Okay. Over here, you can see I have Azure Monitor agent here. This is my Azure Monitor agent that I installed, and I did not do any configuration other than installation. No additional configuration was done yesterday when I installed this agent. And this is my laptop. It is installed on my local laptop, and you can validate the name of the laptop also. So that's the name of my laptop. Okay, this is on the EC2 instance actually. This is my laptop. This is my laptop. And if you look at the host name, this is my host name of the laptop. Now, if I go back to log analytics workspace on the instance that I have here, and if I just run a query to check whether I'm receiving the heartbeat from this, you can see I'm actually receiving the heartbeat. I'm just checking the last heartbeat that I've received from this system. Okay. So this is the last heartbeat received from each system, and you can see my system here. Desktop OSLBDOR. That's my desktop. Desktop OSLBD01. So what it basically means that when you are downloading Azure Monitor Agent outside of Azure from the data collection rule, the agent has the information of the data collection rule incorporated automatically. So which basically means that the moment you download the agent will already know where it needs to send data to. And that's exactly what it's doing.
Yeah, correct.
Because if this was not possible, then I would not have got these, heartbeat from this agent. This is the
Because
last
we have not
heartbeat.
entered keys and workspace ID.
Yeah, we have not done that, right? And that was the concern, because that article was only available, was only published on 19th, and I had not gone through that article. But in one of the table, it says that it is not supported. Any outside of Azure is not supported with Azure Monitor Agent unless and until you use Azure Arc. See, I'm not using Azure Arc here on this laptop at all, but I am able to deploy Azure Monitor Agent on this laptop, and this laptop is sending heartbeat. So if it is sending heartbeat, it means it is sending logs, right? So probably what is happening here, that the agent was downloaded from the data collection rule here. So I downloaded this agent from here. Now this is what you can check on other servers if you have. And this is what I'm going to do once again. So this is the data collection rule. This is the one that I'm using here. And here's the data source. From this data collection rule, sorry, resources. From this data collection rule, I downloaded the agent from this rule. Now, since I downloaded the agent from this rule, probably, and this rule already has destination configured for data sources already. Over here, it has destination configured, that what destination the log needs to send to. So probably the agent, when you download, is incorporating the same information about the log analytics workspace and the key of the log analytics workspace or the Azure Monitor agent information. And once you download that agent on a client or a server, you don't need to configure anything in addition to it. All you need is outbound to internet on 443 available on that server or client, and the agent will start to send data automatically. This is what I assume from the behavior that I see. Probably if there is anything internal to it that I have not seen, you may look into it. But I assume that you don't actually need any additional installation for Azure Monitor Log Agent, as long as you're downloading it from the same data collection pool. It would have that information incorporated, and the moment you install it, within few minutes, it will start to send logs to the respective log analytics workspace. That is what I wanted to show you from that query. Make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So what we are going to do, we are going to use the same agent then for this EC2 instance also. And we'll see whether this EC2 instance will also start to send heartbeat to my log analytics workspace or to my Sentinel workspace. If this happens, then it will be confirmed that for both client and server, because my laptop is a client and this is a server. So this will be confirmed that yes, without any additional configuration, you can install Azure Monitor Log Agent on a client or server outside of Azure, provided if you download it from the same data collection rule, which has a workspace integrated to it or workspace configured to it. So that's what we would like to check. Other than this, if you only want to understand how do we, now this is for all the participants, if you want to understand how do we onboard virtual machines and servers outside of Azure into Sentinel. Now those virtual machines or servers could be AWS, GCP, any public cloud virtual machines or servers. They could be an on-premises, they could be physical servers also. This is the process that we follow. So we log into Azure. I'll go inside the instance. So this is my instance. On the instance, I'll navigate to my log analytics workspace, which is connected to Sentinel. And from that workspace, I'll download this agent, log analytics agent. The agent is downloaded. I'll install this agent. I've configured this machine with low configuration, low resources, just to optimize the cost, because this machine is part of a paid account in AWS. So here's the agent. I double click on the agent to install it. Next, next, next. Select the connect to agent Azure Log Analytics. And here I type the workspace ID and key. And this is the workspace ID. And here's the key. So once I do this and install it, the agent will establish connectivity on outbound to internet port 443 to its log analytics workspace, and it will start to send logs to the workspace. So this is installed successfully. If you want to see whether the connectivity to the workspace is established from the agent on the source machine, you need to navigate to control panel and click on small icons. Here you will see Microsoft Monitoring Agent and navigate to Log Analytics, and you need to look for this green check. It says Microsoft Monitoring Agent has successfully connected to the Operations Management Suite service. Operations Management Suite is Log Analytics Workspace. So it has successfully connected, which means it has started to send heartbeats, and it happens in near real time. So if this is connected, I should start to get the heartbeats. Probably I'll go back to my system, Log Analytics Workspace, and I'll run a query. I run this query. This query will give me the last heartbeat from each system in this workspace. All right, there we go. You can see this EC2 instance now. So this EC2 instance is now reporting into this workspace. This is my EC2 instance. EC2 AMAZ stands for EC2 Amazon. 2 SC5 lab, 5 LAB, and that's the host name of the instance. You can validate it from here. It's here. This is from my local system. You can see 25C, 25C5 LAB, and that's exactly what you see here. So you can see this log is coming, and you can read this log also. And say, you can see this log is coming, and you can see it's a direct agent that I've installed. It's coming from the direct agent. Direct agent is, and for my desktop also, it is showing direct agent. So it shows direct agent. For rest of the VMs, it shows Azure Monitor Agent, because the Azure Monitor Agent on the rest of the VMs, which are Azure VM, was installed using extension from the data collection rule. And for my laptop, my personal laptop, and for this Amazon EC2 instance, it is installed manually. And you get all the information. I'm saying, may not tell you whether it's from Amazon, but you can see United States because the VM is in US. And you can see computer environment, it's non-Azure, it's outside of Azure, both my laptop as well as the server. This is outside of Azure. So this is how we onboard an EC2 instance into Microsoft Sentinel. Does that answer your question? Whosoever is asked this question, Nishant, Neelkant, I believe it was Neelkant.
Yeah. So like the same query. So I mean, if it is an auto scaling environment, then new servers needs to have this agent installed every time.
No, not the new servers, because those new servers are temporary.
Okay.
The auto scaling, you have an initial configuration. Let's say you start your auto scaling with 2 servers, right? Then you
Yeah.
configure the told that when the CPU or memory utilization goes beyond 80%, please add additional 2 servers. Okay. Now 2 additional servers are configured, but for how long they will remain configured is the question. When the load goes down from your application, then those 2 servers will be discarded. It may happen probably the next 5 minutes. Those 2 servers may continue to exist for next 1 hour, but those are temporary. So how will you deploy agent on those 2 servers?
Okay.
The option in the scale set, and scale set is equivalent of virtual machine scale set in Azure. So there is no option in virtual machine scale set to basically deploy an agent from, I'm saying, even if you, what you can do there, I'm saying, I have not tested it, I need to test it. You have a golden image basically in virtual machine scale sets in Azure, you have a golden image. So probably what I can do on the golden image, I can deploy the log analytics agent. Now from that golden image, additional instances will be configured. So when those additional instances will be configured, they will also have that agent deployed.
Yeah.
So then the logs from those additional instances will come till the time they remain, they exist. When they are discarded by the scale set service, then the logs will stop coming. So that could be a probability, but I will need to check it before I give my 100% confirmation that yes, this is doable.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
And same is
basically,
the
so basically what we have doing is this time is like we have integrating Active Directory. So all the logs will be there in Active Directory, and then whenever there is a new instance, we will get a logs from Active Directory. So we are using this solution.
Okay, all right. So I've just told you the logical aspect of it. Now,
Yeah.
how it specifically happens in alert logic is internal to alert logic, because every SIEM solution has its own way of working. They all do the same job. The objective is the same that they basically serve. The purpose is same, but their internals are different. Their building blocks are different, and how they are configured is totally internal to them. That visibility I don't have. Okay, so this is how we ingest logs using logs from non-Azure VMs using log analytics workspace. Now I would like to test the other aspect of this, which is the Azure monitor part. So what I will probably do, I will probably remove this agent, uninstall this agent from the VM. So I'm installing this agent from the VM. This is log analytics agent. I would basically deploy an Azure monitor agent on this VM now, this EC2 instance now, and see whether Azure monitor agent is able to send the heartbeat. If that happens, then it will be confirmed that Azure monitor log agent is now compatible to work with non-Azure VMs and servers without any additional configuration. That's what we want to check. So I've removed it from the VM. If I just refresh the screen, it will not be shown there. So if I go back, if I click on it, it will not exist. It says an error because it has been removed. Okay. Now what I'm doing, I'm copying the Azure Monitor agent on this VM. So I'm copying the agent from my local system. I have it from yesterday. I'll just copy it. And once it is copied, I will install it and see whether this agent is also able to send the logs. And if it is able to send the logs, Yogesh, you don't need to do any research. Just go ahead and start using Azure Monitor Log Agent for all the new developments, deployments that you will do from today onwards. In fact, for the existing customers also, so that when the right time comes to migrate from Log Analytics to Azure Monitor, you would at least have less number of agents to migrate. Make sense?
Yes, Raghuveer, yeah.
Okay. So while this is getting copied, where is that gone? Okay, this is getting copied. I'm copying it from my local system, so that will take time. Meanwhile, so now that we have configured all the connectors that we wanted to, we have also configured an EC2 connector, AWS connector that I've just shown you. So we are done with the configuration part. Now the next thing is to validate whether we are receiving logs. So I'm going to share some common KQL queries with you that you will use on day-to-day basis to validate whether you are receiving logs. This is part of troubleshooting. What happens in operations, there are times because of synchronization issues, you don't see the environment as you expect. However, you need to make sure whether you are receiving logs or not. And Sentinel will never tell you whether you are receiving logs or not. It is the log analytics workspace, which is the log repository that you need to query to validate whether we are receiving logs or not. So I'll share some sample queries with you. Now there could be thousands of queries, hundreds of thousands of queries. You can also write custom queries if you have knowledge on, if you have knowledge on KQL, you can also write custom queries. But I'll share some most common queries that in operations you will need. So let's get started. So we'll go to Azure Monitor. We'll click on logs here. Whether you click on Azure Monitor logs or whether you click on Log Analytics log, it is the same thing. It is referring to the same repository. Okay. Now, let's understand the internals of KQL. So when you go into the logs, you basically see tables and queries here. Now, what these tables are. So whenever so logs are ingested, logs are stored into a table. So Log Analytics workspace or log repository is creating a table and logs are stored in the table. For each solution that you deploy and install and configure, a table is created. For some solutions, there is a common table. For some solutions, there is a separate table. For most of the solutions, there is a separate table. Now, when you deploy a solution, a table is created and logs are stored in this table. So for example, if you go to log management table, you will see a couple of tables which will reflect to the solutions that you have installed or connectors that you have configured. Oh, I am actually doing this inside the VM. I should not do anything inside the VM. I'll go back to my local system, there it will be quicker. So I'll navigate to Azure Monitor Logs. Okay. Inside the logs, now I'll see a couple of tables. So the log management table contains, you can see this table is, it basically has multiple tables inside. and it contains log. It shows you that what it contains. So it says managed identity Azure Active Directory sign-in logs. So in this table, you have sign-in logs from Azure Active Directory. In this table, you also have sign-in logs from non-interactive Azure Active Directory sign-in logs. You have audit logs in this table, which is also coming from Azure Active Directory, because you have enabled both audit logs and sign-in logs. In this table, it is containing Azure Activity logs that you have configured. In this table, it is containing the health and performance data of Azure, which is also part of Azure Activity logs. In this table, it contains the Windows event logs, and this is coming from all the virtual machines that you have enabled. And these events log will come from the data collection rule that you have enabled. In this table, it contains the health beat, heartbeat. So on all these data sources, when you have deployed a log analytics agent or Azure monitor agent, the agent will send heartbeat every minute to its log analytics workspace or to its management server. So all the heartbeat information is stored into this table. Similarly, this table contains insights. I would say insights, which is the performance data related to the virtual machines. This table contains operational related aspects. This table contains sign-in logs. This table contains syslogs, which we are receiving from Linux. This table contains usage logs, hourly usage data for each table in the workspace. So this is the usage data for the rest of the tables that you see above, the usage data for this workspace. So this is how it is creating a table for each solution or each connector or each utility that you are enabling. Similarly, you have a table for Microsoft Sentinel. Now this table is basically coming because we have enabled the integration with outside of Azure, which is AWS. So you can see this table is basically for CloudTrail. So it contains CloudTrail logs, which is getting ingested from Sentinel connector, and it will contain all the data and management events of the AWS account. This table contains security logs. This table contains, this table basically contains the security incidents that Microsoft Sentinel is generating on its dashboard and security alerts which are generated into Sentinel, and as well as any integration that you have enabled in the Sentinel with the outside, with the non-Microsoft platform. So this is what this table contains. Then this table contains Azure resources, the same insight matrix that you see here. It is the same insight matrix. The difference between these two insight matrices is that this insight matrix is basically the near real-time data, because we've also enabled performance insights. And then this is Azure Monitor for VM. This is containing the insight matrix for virtual machines, and this contains insight matrix for other than virtual machine services like storage account, virtual network, that you have also integrated with Microsoft Sentinel. So the number of tables will continue to increase. It will continue to add more tables. And say if I click on collapse all, then it will show me additional specific tables because I have put them into a group. So it says group by solution. If I say category, then you will see the tables like this. So I always keep it by solution. So these are the solutions that we have installed. So it will continue to add more tables as in when you onboard more data connectors, more solutions. This is what tables are all about. Now we cannot get inside the table and see the data. That is not possible. If you want, you only see the strings inside the table or the logic that you need to use while running the KQL queries. So that is all that you see. So you don't see the data inside the table here. If you want to see the data, you will need to run KQL query that will fetch the data from the table and present it to you. So let's see how do we run queries. Now my next option is queries. So when I click on queries, I will see some sample queries which are grouped by category. I can also group by solution. So that way I can see the sample queries. Let's say I want to see some sample queries for my virtual machines. So not group by solution, resource type topic. Let's see if you see virtual machines here. Okay, group by solutions there, resource type. Okay, here you will see the virtual machines. Okay, over here, virtual machines. So you can group this query by resource type. Then you will see the specific services that Microsoft Sentinel is capable of capturing logs from, and the queries which are available against those services. It doesn't mean that you have these services installed. It only means that in the log analytics workspace or in the Azure monitor logs, you have queries available for these services. So we want to see queries for virtual machine. We'll navigate to virtual machine and we can see queries. These are the queries for virtual machines. So it says, it shows you a couple of queries that count heartbeats. So if you run this query, I'm saying whenever you want to run a query, you just need to double click on that query. So when I double click on that query, this query will be shown in the editor and it will show you show you what exactly that query does and what information it brings on the table. Now this specific query, you can see it counts heartbeat. It shows all computers' heartbeat from the last 1 hour. I'm saying if you have 100 computers and if a computer is sending heartbeat every minute, then 100 into 60. So you will get 6,000 heartbeats as a result of this query. If you're running this query and the query you're running for last 1 hour. So it says count computers' heartbeats in last 1 hour. Normally agents on VMs generate heartbeat every minute. So 1 heartbeat per minute, 60 heartbeat in an hour, and there are how many systems do we have? Let's say 6 virtual machines. So 60 into 6, 360 heartbeats you will see when you run this query. So you will click on run and you will see the result of this query. So it says queries could not be passed. Okay, this could not be passed because what happened? Please open. Okay, nothing but synchronization issue. Whenever it says don't bother about it, it is nothing but the synchronization. See, it was not running before, it is running now. So whenever it says something, don't bother about it, refresh your screen, it will work. All right, now you can see how many heartbeats have we received. It shows me from each computer how many heartbeats I have received. So you can see from Ubuntu VM, because it generates 1 heartbeat every minute. So in the last 1 hour, obviously there will be 60 heartbeat. So I've been receiving all 60 heartbeat from these computers, but this AWS EC2 instance, I only added a minute ago, I'm saying a couple of minutes ago, and it was able to send 7 heartbeats. And by that time I uninstalled that agent. So now it is not sending any more heartbeat. In the last 1 hour, these many heartbeats I have received. So this is a good query that will help you. Now, if you are part of an operations team and your job is to troubleshoot and do the operations aspect as well, what you would like to do? You would like to save this query for future uses, but you don't want to search it again and again. So in that case, what you can do, you can save this query. So there is an option that says save as query, and you can save this query in the workspace itself. So type the query name, which is, you can type heartbeat from all VMs in last 1 hour. You can just write the name and then you can select log analytics workspace that you are putting this query into log analytics workspace and save it. That's it. Now this query will be saved, and next time you don't need to search for it. You don't need to write a separate document with all the queries. You can rather save queries in your workspace itself. And whenever you need to look for queries, you will find it. Where is my query? They keep on changing the view. Okay, save as, new alert rule, format query, no. You just need to see one of the options here. Okay, let's remove this query first. Where is my query gone? My operations team. This shows somewhere here. I'll show you. I just need to double check where it goes. So you basically save this query like this. And once this, okay, maybe like this. So I click on new query. And so also it shows you query history, wherein you will see all the queries that you have run the last few queries it will show you. So you can search the queries from here, but you also have an option here wherein you can see your saved query. So I'm just not able to see that. Probably it is somewhere, or I need to check whether they have moved it to some resource solution. No. Okay, let me check and I'll get back to you. But you can save queries like that, and that will help you to rerun the queries. You can see the queries in the history also. So the queries that I'm running, I'll also show you those queries. I'll also share those queries with you so that you can run those queries yourself. So this was our first query. I'll put it into the chat window. Okay, you all can copy this query from the chat, and you can also run this query and validate whether you are receiving heartbeat from the from the virtual machines that you have enabled. So that is my first query. Now, similar to this, if I want to get the last heartbeat of each computer, this shows me the last 1 hour of heartbeat. But if I want to get last heartbeat of each computer, I would need to run a separate query. Let's see whether that query is here in the virtual machines. Okay, it is not there in the virtual machine. So I'll show you what is that query. So that you will need to type max time generated colon start for all the computers.
Actually, it is under Azure Monitor.
It is where?
Under Azure Monitor.
That's okay. I've just typed it. I would say it is not that difficult to remember. So this is the query. This query basically gives you last heartbeat of each computer. So you just run this query and it will give you the last heartbeat from each computer. Okay. Now you can see the last heartbeat of each computer. The last heartbeat from this computer came on this time. However, for rest of the computers, you can see since they are up and running, their heartbeat is almost coming every minute. You can see every minute your heartbeat is coming. But for the EC2 instance, it came this time. So this is how you get the last heartbeat. I'll save this query. I'll put that query into the chat now. So this is last heartbeat of each computer. So this is my another query which will give me last heartbeat of each computer. Now there could be thousands of query based on what your job role and responsibilities and what you do. So there could be n number of queries. I'm just showing you common queries that you will need to run most of the time to get certain information. Okay. So heartbeat queries we have seen. Let's say with respect to Azure Activity Log, if I want to get the last 50 logs, or if I want to get the logs from Azure Activity, and see there are two ways to get this. If you want to see whether you are receiving logs from Azure Activity or not, just type Azure Activity and hit it and run the query. If Azure Activity logs are getting ingested into the log analytics workspace, you will get the result. If they are not getting ingested, then you need to troubleshoot the connector. You need to troubleshoot the diagnostic log option, whether you've configured it right. So my Azure Activity logs are actually getting ingested. You can see all the logs. But if I now, but this could be, you can see how many items are there. There are 1226 items. It is showing me all the activity logs. But if I want the last 50 logs, then the query that I can type is Azure Activity pipe top space 50 by time generated and descending order, so that it shows me the last, then the previous one, then the previous one. So this is the query that I can run. And this query will give me last 50 or top 50 activity logs from Azure Activity. So here's the top 50 logs. You can see now it is only showing me 50 logs. You can see at the bottom, it is showing 10 logs per page, and it is showing me the top 50 logs. So I'll share this query. This query basically helps you in troubleshooting when you want to see the latest logs or the most recent logs. This query will help you there. Now, can I type against top 50? Can I type top 100 and rerun this query? Yes. So I can get top 50, top 100, top 200. So that's how you can run this query. So I'll put it top 50 once again. Why would you want top 100? We typically need top 10, top 50, that is. So I'll put this query into the chat window. Top 50 Azure Activity logs. And here's the query. So this is another query that will help you from the Azure Activity logging perspective, which is the most critical thing that an operations team you will do day in, day out. Okay. Then there are some additional queries which could be related to performance. So performance related queries you will also find inside, inside Azure Monitor Insights, VM Insights. You can get those queries also. Let's say you want to get bottom 10 free disk space, that out of 100 VMs, which is the bottom 10 VMs that has free space or logical disk space below threshold. And so if you want to run this, you can also run this query. Whenever you need to run this query, please make sure you remove the previous query. If you want to run this query, this is the query. You don't need to be a KQL expert. You don't need to run the commands on your fingertips. You don't need to remember them. Just understand the logic and use the logic that where exactly you will get that query. So just remember the table concept, that there's a table for each solution. There's a table for each connector. Just do a reverse engineering and identify in which table it could be there. And accordingly select the table or go to query and select the solution. So you can select the solution and you will know that the query. So if I want to look for a query related to VM, where will I get that query? So this is where you need to understand. So if you don't have that knowledge, and it will take some time, but slowly and gradually you will understand it, that in which area I need to go. So I will need to go into log management. Probably I will get that query here because this is where it keeps the query of all the performance data, VM related data. If you don't get it from here, then you can group by resource type and say by topic, and here you will get it. So here you will get it, the Azure Monitor matrices. You can see matrices here. And performance data, this is where you will get the performance data, average CPU usage. Bandwidth related to performance data, you will get all the queries here. So let's say I want to run this query. You can see this query is here. Top CPU, logical disk, the one that I was looking in the other view, it is also here because it is performance related. So if I want to run this query, top CPU chart, CPU usage, or top CPU consuming machines, all of this query, average CPU usage. Let's say I want to run this query. I'll double click on this query, remove the previous query, and I will run this query. Now, I may not get any data as a result of this query. And that is the same case. I'm not getting data. I knew it, that I will not get data. Can somebody tell me why I'm not getting this data? When I'm able to get the heartbeat from the VMs, why am I not able to get the result from this query? Why it is not showing me the average CPU consumption of those VMs? Any guess, guys? Why am I not able to get this data? Or the question is whether you want to get the results. So I'll put this query into the chat for you. See if you're able to get the results.
Because you don't have any database servers running.
So I've just put the query into the chat window. This query will give you every CPU usage in last 1 hour by the resource name, and I'm not getting the result. First of all, are you getting the result? That's the question. Right, guys, did you get the result of this query for your respective configuration? Okay, so I'm not running any database server generating matrix. Okay. Dushyant, Neelkant, Yogesh, if you have it configured, are you receiving result from this query?
No, Raghu.
You're also not receiving.
No results, yeah.
Okay. The reason I'm not receiving, I'll tell you the reason now. The reason I'm not receiving the result of this query, because if you look here in the data collection rule that I have, this is my data collection rule. In this data collection rule, if I go to data sources, I'm not capturing performance log. That's the reason. And remember, I told you sometimes to reduce log ingestion, to reduce log volumes or log noise, we don't collect performance data or performance logs from virtual machines because security monitoring actually doesn't need it. And even if security monitoring team needs performance logs, they would rather connect with monitoring team, network operation teams or infra monitoring team, and they will seek the logs from them. If they are investigating any security incident which is related to sudden spike in resources configuration of a VM, and the cause of spike is not known, but because of that spike, the application starts to experience performance issues. Application becomes unavailable. And this has happened a number of times. And they probably think that it could be a security incident. There could be something in the VM, or there could be some network activity which is causing sudden spike in CPU and memory. And for that, they need the performance trend of the VM. They need to see the performance trend of the VM. They can in fact request that data from the monitoring team for the specific time frame. They can ask the monitoring team, hey, monitoring team, can you get us the data, CPU and memory utilization data of this VM from this date to this date or from this time to this time? So they can get the data from them also. They don't need to enable it, because if you enable it, imagine for every log you are paying money. So if you have enabled performance logs for 1000 VMs, and if you have enabled both CPU, memory, disk, and network utilization logs, imagine the log volume that you can expect. And on account of that log volume, there will be charges also. So to avoid that, in security monitoring, we typically don't enable performance matrix, performance logs. But if you feel a log, if you feel a need, you can enable that. It is not that you cannot enable it, you can enable that also. Make sense? So that was the reason I'm not getting it, because I've not enabled it. I'm sorry, I was talking on mute. So this is another query that we can type, and this query basically gives me all the failed logon attempt information on my machines. If I have 1,000 machines, in 1,000 machines that are sending logs to Sentinel, and if I want to query whether there has been any logon attempt on a machine wherein a user typed incorrect password 5 times or more than 5 times, it will result, it will show me that result. Now, this helps you in investigating the security incidents, a specific security incidents, or this helps you in creating an alert rule for this query, which will then create an incident whenever this query is met, whenever this condition is met. So the condition is that if any user tries to log into any system and types the password incorrect consecutively 5 times or more than 5 times in a row, the query will trigger, will create an alert, which will then be converted into an incident. So this is a most common use case that we configure in SIEM. So I'll share the query. Okay. So obviously this will not generate any result because we actually have not logged into our VM, but probably I will show you the results. So now from next week onwards, what we are going to do, we will need to intentionally create anomalies and configuration changes into our systems so that it will generate security incidents or it will generate alert. So this is another query that we can use. I'll put that query into the chat and you can save this query. Yogesh and other Sentinel people who have been using Sentinel into operations, do you have something similar configured in your Sentinel?
Hi, Raghuveer. You are talking about that use case, like this type of failed logins regarding that.
Yep.
Yeah, we have also few use cases if a user failed to log into that any console after some threshold, that use case will be triggering, like brute force,
Great.
and for some other MFA related cases also we have that case.
Great. All right. So
Yeah.
I'll show you for the course also for the query.
Okay.
Raghu, just a quick question.
Just give me a
Hello.
moment.
Okay.
All right. Yes, tell me. I was just typing on the chat.
Sorry.
Hmm.
Is there any documentation
Yes.
provided for these tables? Like what kinds of table that is generated in the Sentinel?
I didn't get you. Is there any?
Documentation provided for the tables, types of tables, what types of tables that has been generated?
Yeah, I would say you will find it on Sentinel documentation. I can find that specific documentation page that has this information. So as I said, for each solution or connector that you enable in Sentinel, a table is created, and in that table, the logs related to that connector or solution is kept. Now, if you want to know for which type of solution which table gets created, definitely it has to be there in the log. I'm just telling you by my experience because I know that which table gets created for which. For example, here, if you go to the uh, category, you can see here this table, audit table, or if you just click on the resource type, that I know that which, how these tables are getting created for which solution, which table is getting created. All I'm telling you by experience, because I've seen that a number of times. And sometimes when we enable a connector and when we don't see the logs getting ingested, but we are 100% sure that configuration is correct. While troubleshooting, we also come to this place to see whether a table is getting created. Probably there is some synchronization issue, table is not getting created. That is why logs are not coming. And so you will see sometimes that connector status shows as connected. However, logs are not getting ingested. The agent status shows as connected. Then where is the log? Where exactly the logs are going? So logs are actually getting lost in transit because they are not reaching to the table. So this basically helps you in troubleshooting. If you want the specific documentation which tells you that for which connector, which table is getting created, I'll just write it down. I'll research it. I'll search for it and I'll share it probably on Monday. You can
Yeah, thanks.
Okay. Just need to look for Sentinel documentation. I made a note of it. Probably I'll share it with you on Monday. Okay, next. So similarly, I'm saying there could be n number of queries. Now, what you need to understand here is some of the syntaxes or common commands in Sentinel. So that's what you need to understand. So I'm saying some of the common comments are there that I can share with you. That I have a document, I made a note of it. First, let me show you some commands. Where is that? Okay, here, got it. These are the common commands that you can run or common syntaxes that you can use. I'll put that into the chat window. Okay. So these are the common commands that you can use. For example, you just have seen that I was using where and summarize a lot. So you can use these commands. And say whenever you put this condition where, it basically filters a table to the subset of rows that satisfies the predicate. So after you type, after you type where, whatever commands you will type next, it will look for that information. So for example, let's say I want to get the syslogs from Linux, and I want to get the syslogs from Linux for Linux computers. I'm say for computers which contains operating system as Linux. So how will I write that command? I will type syslog, and then I'll type where, and then I will type computer contains. So I'm putting a condition that get me the logs, syslogs, from Linux computers. So where is the condition that I'm putting? And after the condition, whatever I'm typing, it will basically look for that specific table. So I type this command and then I hit run. Probably I will not get any logs because, as I said, did I type something wrong? No. Let me run this command once again. Okay, so command runs successfully, though the logs did not come because I am not getting any logs. The logs are not getting generated because we actually are not doing anything on those systems. We have not even logged into those systems after we provisioned those systems. So logs are not getting generated, but this is the command. So so you can use where command when you want to filter a table to the subsets. I'm saying when you want to filter a table to satisfy the condition that you put after where. So that's what we use, the where command. Then similarly, you will have another command which is summarize by. Now, where in what conditions we use summarize by? As I have already shown you that we can use summarize by, when you want to uh, get the results, which will be an outcome of the condition from the input table. Then you get the summarize by. So for example, if I want to get some results, let's say the same heartbeat example that I was taking. So heartbeat, and I want to get heartbeat. So I can say summarize. Let's summarize the heartbeat, and then I can put the condition. And then I can put the condition, which is argmax time generated, comma, star by computer. So this will give me, this will summarize, this will take into account all the components of that table, and it will produce the result. So that's another command that you can use. Summarize by produces a table that aggregates the content of the input table. So the input table, I will say the table where the actual data is stored, it will aggregate the content of that table and it will provide the result by summarizing it. Then you have another command which is join, which will, this is like a pipeline, which will merge the rows of the two tables to form a new table by matching values of the specified table from each table. So that's what join is. Similarly, you have another command count, which will return the number of records in the input record set. So if I want to get the count command, I'm saying if I want to run this command, I can use this example. So let's say I want to count the number of if I want to count the number of output from a specific command, then I can run the command also. Let's say for the same syslog. So syslog, and then I want to summarize, and I want to get the count. So I will put the count that I want to get the count of syslogs by each computer. So I want to type this and run the command. It will give me the count of logs from each computer. That's what the command is. So that's how you can get the information. Okay, so this is the another command, count. Similarly, we have top returns the first n records sorted by the specified column. So top we already seen wherein we use top command to return the top 50 activity logs from Azure. So we can run the command like we can run the command Azure Activity, and we can type top, let's say 100 by time generated, and we can say that I want it in descending order. That's it, and run it. So top is another command. So you need to remember these keywords: top, where, join, max. These are the keywords. So it gives me top commands. Rest, KQL is not that difficult. You will continue to get the help from here. When you type a specific keyword, specific command, it will always give you the options which are available. When you type the command, it shows you the options that what would be my options. So it says top ABC 100. So it basically tells me that you can use this option. So you can type top 100, and then it says by what. So it gives you all the by billable size, by resource ID. You can type the resource ID also, subscription ID. So like this, you can also type, and you can get the results. Now, as I said, what you typically do, whatever commands that you run on day-to-day basis, you can always save those commands. So you can always save those commands so that you don't need to remember them. You don't need to run them every day. You will always get them from the, from the same queries. So that's what you can do. So that's the other command. Then you have project command, extend command, make sheet command, find command. Find rows that match a predicate across a table. So if you want to find some data, you can also run this command. So let's say if I don't give you an example, find command. We can run a find command like find in, and then we can type where exactly you need to find. So I can say find in syslog, and what you want to find, event in syslog, and then where, the same where command, where computer, contains, and then you can type Linux. So this is how you can run the command. So you're using both the commands together, find and where. So where is the condition and find what you want to find. So this is the command. I will share the documentation with you. I have documents that I created. I will share those documentations. I'll upload that into the Google Drive, and you can share it. You can see it from there. The reason I'm showing it to you so that you will understand the syntax and how we write those commands. But you don't need to remember is that, as I said, even I don't remember everything. You cannot remember everything that you see, that you work with. That's not possible. So you should always have references available, and references could be in the form of saved documents. It could be in the form of any repository that you have created. What I have seen some technology professionals, they have a GitHub. So they create an account on GitHub, which is again a source code repository, and they keep everything in the GitHub. Whenever they need reference, they'll just log into their GitHub repository and they look for information. Instead of storing anything on a local system or in cloud storage, they will store it on GitHub. So it differs from person to person. The ultimate objective is to get the right amount of information at the right time, irrespective of the source repository, whether it is on a computer, whether it is on a cloud storage, whether it is in GitHub, or whether it is in your mind. You should have access to it when it is needed. That's the ultimate goal. So that's how we run some common commands in KQL, and that is how we can validate whether we are receiving logs from those events or not. So I would request you to go ahead and just go to these queries here. So go navigate to Log Analytics workspace, navigate to logs. Now, all those people who have not done that in the past, when you click on logs, you also see this pop-up, which also shows you some common queries that you can directly run. See, it says query pack. So here you can select the query pack. This is your default query pack. And here you will see all the commands from that query pack. So you can see all the common commands also related to services. For example, if I click on virtual machines, I'm getting all the common commands for the virtual machines. These are my common commands, which includes the heartbeat command also. So this is my common command for my virtual machines. It says shut down virtual machines, logical disk space, not reporting VM in the last 5 minutes, any VM which is not reporting. I can directly run the command from here. Hit run. The command will be typed into the editor and it will run. And you will see the results of the command. So you will see any computer which is not reporting into the last 5 minutes. So probably you will not see the result of this command. Okay, the result came and it is the same EC2 instance which is not reporting because I removed the agent. So this is not reporting. The last report that I got from this EC2 instance, the last heartbeat I got at this time. So once this command is there, so you can also run the commands from here. Every time you log into it, it will show you common commands. And then after you are in the query field, then you can look for specific queries against the category, against the query type also. Let's not look at the query type. Against the resource type, these are the resource type. You can directly search for virtual machine as a resource. It will show you all the queries related to virtual machines, all the queries that you can see. Similarly, you can run the queries related to solution also. These are the solutions that are available in Sentinel. It doesn't mean that these solutions are installed. It basically means that these are the solutions which are available, and some of them are also installed. So you can go to log management solution, and here you will see the similar logs, syslogs, computer related logs, heartbeat related logs, performance related logs. So all of that you will see here. Similarly, Microsoft Sentinel, which will give you logs related to AWS, which will all AWS CloudTrail events. You can see here. You can just run this query and you will start to get the events from CloudTrail. So you can run the logs from here. You want to see, I'm getting the events from CloudTrail now. All of these events are coming from CloudTrail. Describe VPCs, describe subnets. All of these events are coming from CloudTrail, and I've got 766 events from CloudTrail. And these events relate to last 24 hours. I can change the time frame also. I can say last 7 days event I need. And I can rerun the query and I can get last 7 days of events. Now, because we have just enabled the integration with AWS. So even if we say last 24 hours, last 7 days, it would only show me those events which it got ingested into after that integration, after that connector was enabled. So I'm getting the logs, which basically means that my AWS connector that I've enabled is working fine because I'm getting the logs from CloudTrail service. So that's how you can see all sign-in events. Now this is basically coming from Active Directory. So I can just click on sign-in logs. This is the command which will show me the user display name, the user principal name, and the additional information about the user, and I can run this. It will show me all the sign-in logs. So I will only get logs for myself because on this account or on this subscription, I'm the only one who is logging in. And even if somebody else is logging, they're also using the same password. I'm the same credentials, my credentials. But if you remember, I also logged in using another user to do some additional connector configuration, like the connector for Defender for Cloud. I did that, right? So you can see that user login information is also there. So this is the user that I used to log in, Ram Kumar. So I can see the sign-in logs from this user also. So that is how you need to search for queries. All it requires practice. The more you practice, the more you understand the logic behind it. So when you practice more, then you will train your mind in such a way that you will know where you need to look for information or which solution you need to look for a specific log. And you don't need to remember anything. All Azure Activity logs. This is the command that I ran previously that will get me all Azure Activity logs. So I just double click on it and I get the command, same command, project time generated caller operations on. So here you see all AWS console sign-in logs if I want to get. Now this all information is coming from CloudTrail. So I'll just double click on it, run this command. It will show me all the AWS sign-in. Now it doesn't show me anything. Why? Because after I configured the connector, I did not go back to the AWS console and say nobody signed into the console. So if I sign out and sign back in once again, and then come back to this, probably I will see a sign-in log for my ID that somebody signed in. So that's how you will see all the logs under this Microsoft Sentinel table for external events. For specific services, you will see the logs inside the services table, and that's what you need to remember. I'm open to questions if you have any. That is all I wanted to collect. I wanted to talk about when it comes to the KQL logs, or KQL queries, or analyzing or looking for logs into the log analytics workspace or Azure Monitor Log Analytics workspace. I'm open to questions if you have any. If you want to know a specific query or if you have some questions in mind that can we have this sort of query, just let me know. I'll search for it and tell you. I may not have ready, but I can get back to you.
Yes. So this query or content pack is similar to like Splunk. We have a use case library and like that, right? So is it getting updated periodically, or how we get any notification or something?
It's all automatic. Log Analytics is a managed service from Microsoft. So all these queries are getting updated on a periodic basis. Some queries will get deprecated. If you maintain a document wherein you write all the queries, that may not work well because some queries may not work because they keep on adding new switches. They keep on deprecating the queries also. So yes, it updates automatically. Whenever there are new updates in the service, you will see that updated into your console automatically. You don't need to manually update anything as far as any service in Microsoft Azure goes. It's all done in the backend. All you need to update manually is your virtual machine. Any IaaS service that you are using, you need to update it. Log Analytics is a PaaS service. It is a PaaS service because you really don't see where exactly your logs are getting stored. You cannot go to that repository, but you can query logs. And for querying logs, it gives you query editor. But you don't see whether my logs are getting stored at which location, in which storage account. You don't have visibility into it because it's a PaaS service and it gets automatically updated. Definitely option on the service that will tell you when was the last time it got updated, or when was the last time a specific service or capability got deprecated. It will not show you that information, but it will at least show you if there's a capability which is getting deprecated or is already deprecated. For example, this, you can see service map. Service map used to be a feature using which I can create map of different services which has some dependencies. So if there are 10 servers who are somehow depending on one another, either they are sending traffic or receiving traffic from one another, the service map will quickly create a map of all those servers. Now, how does it help? It helps you in migration. So when you are migrating from on-premises to cloud and you're migrating an application, there is a high probability that application has close dependencies on other applications. And while you migrate it to the cloud, the dependency may get interrupted, which means this application in cloud will not work properly. The application which is remained on premises will also stop working. So service map will create a dependency visualization, and that dependency visualization will help you to identify your move group. And you will know that, okay, if I want to migrate this service, I will need to migrate 10 additional services because this service depends on those 10 services. Or 10 additional services depend on this service, so they will need to be migrated together. Otherwise, it will interrupt the services. So they have removed the dependency map. Why? Because now they have enabled this capability in the Azure Migrate. They have moved this capability from here to Azure Migrate, which is the service that we use for migration these days. Yes, logs are stored into a table, and table is using in the backend a database. Okay, so that's what we basically do. So we don't have certain information in Azure for the services, and there are some, there are some dependent services. For example, Sentinel depends on log analytics workspace. Log analytics workspace depends on agent to receive logs. Agents are installed on data sources. So who is responsible to update the agent? Is it the customer who is maintaining the data source? It is the log analytics workspace whose agent belongs to. Who is responsible for it? That's what you need to understand. When you understand this, you will be able to manage the operation well. So in the same scenario, the agent is updated automatically by the log analytics workspace service. So it is the service that is responsible for automatic agent update. And how do you know that how many agents are there? What is the current status of that agent? That visibility you will get from insights, because this is the new capability. Earlier, we would used to run queries to get this information. Now you have Azure Monitor Insights added here, which can quickly tell me all the information about agents. So here I will get all the information about agents. So I've got 2 monitor agents, 4 monitor agents, 2 direct agents, 5 agent status is healthy, 1 agent status is not healthy, and this is my EC2 instance because I removed the agent from that instance, so it shows the status is not healthy. Basically, I will need to move that instance, or in 24 hours, this information will automatically go away. So I will see all of this information here now. Usage, health, I will see the health data also here about the service which is working fine. So all of this information I will get here. Change log, all the configuration changes. If I do any changes that happens on the service, all information I will get here.
Yeah, Raghuveer, I have one question.
Yeah, please go ahead.
So basically, we faced this with one of our customer. Suddenly logs from MMA agent stopped coming. So we checked that it was. We find out the root cause that it was a certificate issue which was not getting renewed and it was expired. So is there any way we can check whether our certificate is going to expire here in Insight? We can check the certificate thing.
Was it related to SCOM agent or log analytics agent?
MMA agent.
MMA agent. No, it is the common agent. That's what I'm saying. See,
Log analytics,
we
yeah, log analytics.
log analytics agent.
Yes.
Okay. So when it comes to log analytics agent, see, this is my log analytics workspace, right? I'm inside the workspace. Look at the option. Do I have any option to manage the certificates here in the workspace anywhere?
No, there is no option.
There is no option, right? So if I don't have any option, because as a user, this is my tool. This is the way I interact with Azure. Using this portal, using these options which are available, I interact with the portal. I'm giving you a logical answer. So if there is no option here, then I would assume that anything that happens in the backend is the responsibility of the service. And service will be able to manage it all by itself. I'm not responsible for it. So now the question is, how did you upgrade the certificate? What did you upgrade? Because if I go to this server and say, as far as I know, certificate-based authentication is also there, but it is with a SCOM. I'm saying when you have workgroup server or when you have outside domain server. So in case of SCOM, what happens, which is the same concept with log analytics, when you have servers which are joined to other domain or which are in workgroup outside of your Active Directory, and if you want to monitor those servers also, so there are two options. Either you join them to the domain or you use SCOM gateway or you use certificate-based authentication. So when there are less number of servers, you will deploy certificates. You can create certificates from certificate store, or you can create certificate from makecert utility, and you will deploy certificates on those servers. And using certificates, those servers will be able to authenticate to the management server, and they will be able to send monitoring data or logs to the server. But this happens in log analytics. I'm sorry, this happens in SCOM. What you are either talking about is the gateway communication. Probably you had a gateway server in between the log analytics gateway server, and that gateway server was communicating with the log sources which were authenticating to gateway via certificate. This could be your scenario, but it cannot be a direct agent scenario wherein you don't have a gateway, you have a log analytics agent running on a server, and the agent stopped sending data because there's a certificate issue. Then that certificate is not related to log analytics because we don't use certificate-based authentication in case of direct gateway. It is only comes into the picture when there's a gateway in between, when there is a log analytics gateway service in between.
Yes, gateway is there. Yes.
Gateway is there, right? Then it may happen. So what you can do from the gateway, when you configure the gateway, you will configure a certificate on the gateway, which is the parent certificate, and then you configure the child cert. Then using that you get a root certificate. You basically export that root certificate and create child certificate, right? And you deploy child certificate onto the server where you need to deploy the agent. Now, when you generate the root certificate or when you get the root certificate generated from your internal CA, then you already know that what is my validity for my certificate, right? Now the question is, do I have a command that tells me that my gateway is expiring? It is not the child certificate, it is the gateway certificate, because both child and parent, child and root certificate has the same expiration date. So you are looking for a command that you can run or a monitoring alert that you can configure that will tell you 20 days before the certificate expires, 3 days before the certificate expires, a day before the certificate expires. Is that the expectation?
Yes.
Okay. So yes, there is a command. I remember doing it. I remember configuring it in SCOM, and I also remember configuring it in Gateway. I just need to look into my repository. I'll get you that command.
Okay.
Yep.
So,
Okay. Any other?
also, Raghuveer, can we retrieve those logs after agent issue is fixed?
Can we?
Can we retrieve those logs when suppose agent is not reporting for past 1 hour? So after fixing the issue, can we retrieve those past 1 hour logs?
Absolutely, because logs are stored into the event log, and event log, see, agent is not working, which it doesn't mean that the logs are deleted. Logs will continue to remain there. So as soon as the agent restores communication with its management server, with its gateway server, or with log analytics a workspace service, it will pick up those logs and it will send it. So agent contains a cache which is of 2 MB. Agent will, when the agent communication restores, it will send all the logs from the cache to the workspace, and then it will start to pick up the new logs. So agent has a time generated stamp on it. Now with that stamp, it will know that what was the last log that I captured from this server. So it will start to capture the logs afterwards. So this capability is there. But the question is, what if the agent resumes communication 30 days after? No, it will not be able to capture the logs because the cache has a time limit of 30 days. After 30 days, it will forget that last time generated stamp, and then it will not know that what was the last log that I captured. In this case, what agent will do? In this case, agent will once again capture all the logs and dump it into the table, which means you will have redundant log in the table. And that is a troubleshooting use case.
Okay, so how much of the data will be agent capturing?
How much data? It captures all the data.
Yeah, it depends upon the cache size.
No. Cache is used in a scenario when there is no connectivity with the server. When agent does not have connectivity with its workspace or with its gateway service, agent will continue to collect data, store it into its cache. The cache size is 2 MB, and it will be able to contain thousands of logs because the log size is in KB or bytes. So it will continue to capture those logs, and when its cache gets filled, then there will be a timestamp for the last log that got into the cache, and that timestamp it will record. Now, whenever the connectivity restores, it will first send all the logs from the cache to the server, and then it will start to capture more logs. But when there's a connectivity, it will not put anything into the cache. It will only put anything into the cache when there is a connectivity issue. Then it will start to capture logs into the cache. This is the capability of the agent.
Okay.
Make sense?
Yeah, it's regular.
Yeah. The next
Can we increase the cache size of these agents?
As far as I know, no, we cannot.
Okay, and the default time also we cannot change.
Why would you need to change the default time?
No, for the particular like how much time it will take, like for you tell, like it will take 30 days, correct? So if
No,
you want to
30
increase,
some time it will remember that time generated stamp.
okay.
After 30 days, it will forget. And 30 days is the max. I'm saying how much time you will take
Yeah,
to
30 days,
restore. 30
maximum
days is
1
the
day or yeah.
2 day. There is a high probability that you don't remember that agent anymore. So what you will do, you will uninstall it, and then it will keep the logs for 30 days. After 30 days, it will delete the logs. So it has 30 days of retention, which is by default configured.
So this is the same case with the Azure monitoring agent as well.
That is what I'm saying. It is the same monitoring agent actually. Whether it's Azure monitoring agent, whether it is log analytics monitoring agent, whether it is Microsoft, whether it is Azure monitor log agent, whether it is COM agent, they are the same agent. They use the same agent. The name is different, the agent is same.
Can you explain the difference between Windows logging and Unix logging with the cache? So my understanding is that there would be a difference.
In case of logging, it is the same. I'm saying in Unix also, it captures the log. You will deploy the agent. Agent will capture the log, and it will always remember the timestamp when it is capturing the log. It follows the same concept. The difference is there in the architecture, that where exactly the logs are getting stored. So that is the difference, but the logging remains the same. The concept remains the same. There is one more difference, that there is limited support when it comes to Unix. Not all versions of Unix are supported. And for that, you will need to look for this article, which is Log Analytics Unix Support. So here it will tell you that what all versions of Unix are supported.
So both will backdate once the cache fills up and you restore connectivity with the gateway or with Azure. They'll both backdate.
Yeah, it is the same concept. As I said, it will have 2 MBs of cache. It will remember the last time generated stamp for the logs that it has captured. Beyond 2 MB, it will not capture any additional log, but it will remember the time generated stamp. Whenever the connectivity restores, it will first send all the logs from the cache to the management server, to the gateway or to the workspace. And then the last time generated stamp that it has captured, it will start to capture logs from that time generated stamp. It is the same behavior. And here's the supported operating system. You can see for Linux in this article, it shows you the following for a list of Linux distributions supported by log analytics. Here's the article. This is for Windows, and these are the Linux. So you just need to make sure that you are putting log analytics agent on one of these versions. I'll put that into the chat. So not all Linux Unix flavors and versions are supported. Typically, it supports most of the recent versions. So this is the version that we have supported. You can see it does not support anything beyond 14. It typically supports most of the recent and the last few iterations of it.
Okay, so Raghavi, suppose our agent is down for around 2 days. Let's suppose Windows on Windows Server, our agent is down for 2 days, and the file size is increased by more than 2 MB. So will the logs dropped if the file size is for more than 2 MB? What will happen to those logs?
You did not understand the concept, Yogesh. 2 MB is the cache size. It's a cache memory that the agent have, which basically means as soon as the connectivity goes down. See, understand the flow. When the connectivity is there, whenever there's a data change on the source server, the agent will pick up that change. I would say pick up that change log and send it to its management server, workspace, or gateway server over 443 outbound. It will send it to it, and it follows the same process. And right to its server. Whenever the connectivity breaks down between the agent and server, agent will start to put those logs into its cache. Why it is putting the logs into the cache? Because there's a high probability that on the server, you do not have storage mechanism. On the server, you do not store the logs for beyond a specific time. Maybe you have some configuration on the server that the logs are deleted every hour. So that is why agent has a cache in which it will store the logs. The cache size is 2 MB. It will store the logs for as long as that cache size is not full, and it will continue to send heartbeat. It will continue to, tries to connect to its server. Now, when the 2 MB cache is full, whatever the last log it has received, it will capture the time generated stamp of that log. What is the time generated stamp of that log? It will capture that information. Let's see, after 2 days, the connectivity is restored. So what it will do, as soon as the connectivity is restored, it will send all the logs which it has accumulated into its cache to the server first, and then the last log that it will look into the timestamp of that log, and beyond that timestamp, it will look into the source server and will see whether it has logs after that timestamp, logs that was generated after that timestamp. Whatever log it will pick up after that timestamp, it will start to send those logs. Now there's a high probability that some logs will be lost. Why? Because the server does not have retention configured. On the server itself, logs are getting deleted every day. So probably what happens, it will lose some logs from the previous day because the logs got deleted on the server. But if on the server, you do not delete the logs, for example, Windows event logs are deleted every 30 days. So which means that for 30 days, you have logs on the server. So even if the connectivity is restored after 2 days, 5 days, 30 days, you will still be able to get all the logs. But if it is restored beyond 30 days, then there's a high probability that you will lose some logs. That is how Microsoft has created this agent. And Microsoft did not create this agent for the purpose of monitoring. Microsoft also uses this agent for other products where the agent is deployed. Like Microsoft uses the same agent for IoT monitoring as well. Now on IoT devices, logs are getting ingested from various manufacturing devices. And those manufacturing devices do not retain the logs. They'll send the logs and then they discard the logs. And logs are getting generated in the numbers of thousands or tens of thousands every minute because those devices are generating a lot of data. So that is why this 2 MBs of cache capability is there in the agent, so that it will at least be able to store some amount of logs when there is a connectivity issue with its management server. So that's the purpose of creating this agent. They did not create this agent only for log analytics, only for SCOM. They created it as a common agent. That is why the name of the agent is Microsoft Monitoring Agent. So for any Microsoft monitoring service or any service that has the monitoring capability, this agent can be used. So it's a global universal agent that we are using, not a specific agent for log analytics. I'm saying not a specific agent for this purpose. It's a global agent and the properties are global. Make sense?
Where did you get the 30 days retention for Windows event log from? My understanding is security logs are only kept up to 20 megabytes by default on disk.
I'm saying it differs from server to server, from one version to another. You basically, when you have an Active Directory environment, the Windows administrators, they basically put this configuration. They put the configuration of 30 days of retention. So I'm referring it from there. But if there is no retention, then it could be in the sizes also, as you rightly said, it could be 20 MB, and it differs from one version of operating system to another. I'm saying it could be something else for 2012 as compared to 2022.
Okay, thank you.
Any other?
Hi, Raghuveer. The question is related to virtual machine. Like, I just want to stop that virtual machine. Like, I don't want to stop that virtual machine manually. Is there any custom time range we can set after some period, like 24 hours, it should be stopped like that?
Are you referring it from Sentinel perspective or logical?
Yes, from Sentinel perspective.
But why do you want to? So what do you want to stop? Do you want to stop sending logs from a virtual machine after 24 hours? Is that the ask?
Yes.
Or you want virtual machine?
Yeah, the same. Like, I don't want to stop by going to that virtual machine and clicking on that stop option. I want to stop, like, I want to set that some custom time range, like after 24 hours, it should be stopped manually, automatically.
The virtual machine should stop or agent should stop? What should stop?
Virtual machine should stop.
Okay, virtual machine should stop. So
Yeah.
what you can do, there is an automation option on the virtual machine. I'm saying you can do it through PowerShell also.
Okay.
I would do a number of times. For example, this virtual machine. Okay, while this virtual machine is coming up, there could be two questions. One is, can I stop log ingestion from a specific virtual machine to workspace? Yes, you can stop. You just need to stop the agent. Just stop the service of agent. It will stop the log ingestion. It will stop sending any logs. That's the answer of first question. The second question, can I put automation in my virtual machine? Yes, you can see this automation. Over here, there's an option that says task. And this automation is in preview, which means this is actually available to multiple services now. You can add a task here. So you can see power of virtual machine. Stop a virtual machine at a scheduled time of the day. This is what you can do. You can configure this automation, which will stop the virtual machine at a specific time. This is for Azure Virtual Machine. So you will configure the time frame. The virtual machine will be stopped at that time. And then there is another automation in the template which says start a virtual machine. Configure another automation for start. So configure this for stop and another for start. And that way you will have automation configured. Whenever that time strikes, the virtual machine will be stopped. And whenever the other time strikes as per the other automation, virtual machine will be turned on. So you can do this, but this capability was recently made available. Now, if you want to know how did we do it in the past, then we can write a PowerShell script, put it into Azure automation, and attach that Azure automation to the virtual machine, and virtual machine will follow it. So I'm logged in. I will go to next configure. Here I can put the task name. Let's say stop the virtual machine. Stop VM. I can put the time that when I want to stop the VM. So stop VM, whatever time I want to put it here, I can put that time. So let's say I want to stop the VM today, 21, and here I can put the time. This will use the same time that my system has. I can select the time zone also, which is, since this virtual machine is in East US, I will select Eastern Standard Time. Eastern Standard Time. And I would rather say, let's say 8 p.m. So 8 p.m. in the evening, this virtual machine should be stopped. Then I can put the interval also. So interval is time interval for records. That what is the time interval? So I can put it every 24 hours, which means every 24 hours at 8 p.m. the virtual machine will be stopped. I can put the frequency also, that it is the frequency of days. And then I can put the notify me. Yes, I can put my email address. Sorry, this will be 1 day. Every 1 day, which means every 24 hours, or I can put it like this, 24 hours. So Raghu.1985006 Okay, so now 8 o'clock in the evening Eastern Standard Time every day, this machine will be stopped. A notification email will be sent to me. That's how I can put a task. Now, this has nothing to do with Sentinel Authenticate. So this is Office 365 Outlook. I also, because it will be sending an email. So with which account will it use to send email? You also need to provide that account information, the account that it will use to send an email. Because you have provided the destination email address, but you have not provided the sender email address. Microsoft will not use its own email address. It will use an email address that you will provide here. So probably it will use the same email address with which you have this account configured. So it is authenticating to that email address. Or you can provide any other email address that you would like to use to send the communication. So it is connected. All the information I've put the send receiver email address. This email address will be notified. I will hit review plus clear. That's it. And you can see it is using a logic app in the backend. So this is basically creating a logic app in the backend, which will get triggered at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time and will stop this VM. And it will get triggered every 24 hours because that's the run frequency of the logic app. And every 24 hours it will get triggered. It will stop the VM. If the VM is already stopped, then it will just run and it will return the result as successful, that it run, the VM was stopped, so it did not do anything, but the VM was started, it stopped the VM. So that's how I can add this task. Now, once this task is created, I will add another task to start the VM also, because you've stopped the VM. Now, definitely you want to start this VM at some time, probably when the business hour starts. So you might want to start this VM at 9 o'clock in the morning Eastern Standard Time. So you can create another automation task to start the VM at 9 o'clock. So this one is created. You can see stop VM is created. I'll add another task to start the VM. So I'll click on authenticate. Same process. This is already authenticated for the same VM. I'll click on configure, type start VM. And I'll select the time. I'll say the start time. So that start time will happen from tomorrow, probably at 8 o'clock. And time zone will be the same, Eastern Standard Time. Interval will be 24. It will be hours. Notify me on. And every time the VM is stopped and started, you will receive a notification 10 minutes ago. And this has nothing to do with Sentinel. This is a normal, Azure operation. Preview plus create. That's it. You got the details now, Triveni? This is
Yes,
what.
Yeah, got it. Thank you.
And as I said, this is using Logic App in the backend. This is a service which is in preview. This service has been in preview for a long time, and I still remember at least 6 months I've been there. And this service works perfectly, no issues. So you can use this service. But if this service did not exist, then you would use ARM templates. So you will use template here. This is the template. Here you will create an ARM template, basically a JSON template, or you can write a PowerShell script and you can put that PowerShell script into the. Now this is from the portal. There is also an option which is from inside the OS. You can also give instructions to your VM to start and stop. So you can create a scheduler. There is an option inside the OS with the name scheduler. You can create a scheduler and you can give instructions to the scheduler to an activity that needs to be performed. So inside the scheduler, you can put the instruction that please stop and then please start. So scheduler will take care of it. Or if you don't want to use scheduler, then here's the template. So you can create a template here and you can also do it. Or you can write a PowerShell script and you can upload that script into a template and then provide a schedule to the template and associate the template with a resource. At this specific time, the template will get triggered and it will perform an action on the resource as per the instructions given in the template. So there are multiple ways to achieve this use case, actually. But the easiest one is what I have just shown you, because for that way, you actually don't need to write anything. You don't need to have programming skills. All you need to do is to just follow the prompt. That's it. So you can configure it for your virtual machine today and you will see that it will work. But I will not recommend other participants to do this because there's a cost for it. Always remember, there's a cost for everything. So if today is our last day of the training and then we will resume our training next week on Monday, I would request you to shut down your VM from the portal itself. Do not use this automation, because if you use this automation, then there will be a charge. The charge will be very slightly, I mean, it will hardly cost you 20-30 cents each time this automation runs. And this automation is running every 24 hours. So which means you may have incurred approximate $1 charge by Monday if you use this automation. But why to do that? You can just configure it for the understanding purpose and then delete it. Or you can keep it if you don't bother about $1. If you already have a lot of money left, for example, if I specifically talk about myself, in my account, I have, guys, you all can check what is the amount, what is the dollar value that you have left in your account. And if it is very less, then it's an alarm for you also, because we will need this account till 2nd of August, which is our last training day. It's just calculating. I'm keeping my fingers crossed. Great. I have only used $18 so far. With all the optimization in place that I have been doing from day one, I have spent $18. So majority of the money now this will not be a proportional. The amount will continue to increase because now you have more resources. So mine is $18. Who is this person? Rahul Chauhan, only $3. So Rahul, this also tells me something, that you are actually not doing all the labs. Is that the case? Have you not configured what we all have configured in our labs? Because $3 is an alarming factor for me also. Low cost is also an alarming factor here, similar to high cost. Rahul,
Yeah, I have configured lab.
how come this is possible? I will say you only spent $3, which means that you don't have those many virtual machines. You don't have those many accounts created. You have not configured all the connectors. $3 is very less. How many virtual machines do you really have in your account? Okay. Nothing to pinpoint you, but you need to make sure that you have the bare minimum configurations available in the lab. Otherwise, Sentinel will not do anything for you to work with, right? So please make sure that you do it. Okay. Guys, if now this is for all the participants, if you are in the range of 20 to 30 to $40 that you have spent so far, then it's a very balanced range. It's a healthy range. But if your current consumption is beyond $40, then it is an alarming factor for me, because if it is $40 today on Friday, then probably by Friday next week it will be $90, $100. Then what will you do the subsequent week? We have our trading till 2nd of August. The moment your $100 is exhausted, your account will be disabled. Whatever configuration is there will be preserved, will be frozen. You can only reuse it when you upgrade your account to pay as you go. And if you do that, then you will start to get billed as per the normal billing rate. And you don't want that to happen. No, I also don't want that to happen either, because I don't want you to end up paying, thousands of bucks for this training when we had already spent the same amount in procuring this Azure subscription passes. So please make sure that you should not be at the upper side, which is $40 and above, and you should also not be at the lower side, which is $10 and below. Okay. So that's what we need to do. Okay. I'm saying, guys, now I don't want to do any other topic because we are left with no time. So I'm open to questions. If you have any questions, ask me any questions from Azure, AWS, and GCP that comes to your mind, any situation that you're currently working with within and outside of Sentinel. If I have worked with the same technologies, I will be able to answer. If not, I'll make a note of it and probably I'll share the answer on Monday.
Raghu, I have a question with respect to logs. So you showed us how to run logs for different analytics. Is there a way I can schedule a log to run within a certain amount of time? Like I want that log or query to run in every 24 hours automatically. Is there a way to do that?
Yep, you can use logic apps. Using logic apps, you can do it. You can configure an alert against it. There are many ways to do it. You can create a workbook also. And in that workbook, it will always update the logs as per the time frame that you suggest. So there are multiple ways to do it. See, the logs are already there. It is about scheduling the query. So you can schedule in the form of workbooks, in the form of logic app. There are multiple ways to do it.
Okay.
Raghuveer, where we can check the saved queries?
Triveni, you were breaking. I could not hear you properly.
Okay.
You need to.
Yeah. I'm asking, like, we have saved some queries now, so where we can check those queries, in which path and all I'm asking.
Probably that I will tell you next time, because I also need to check. Usually, that's where it keeps changing. That's the beauty of cloud, that what you know is not sufficient. Unless and
And
until
just check
new
that
option,
one
probably
document. Yeah, it
it is
was
always
some.
here itself.
Okay.
Over here, there's an option, saved queries. I'm saying in the same line, it used to be here. I don't see it today. That's the only thing.
Okay.
Let me write a query real quick. It's working now. Okay, so I've written this query. Let's say it has provided me some results. I'll save it, save this query. Okay, so I can put the name, let's say heartbeat. And I'd say save to default query pack. So this basically goes into the default query pack. And that is why it is not asking me to put any label. So Mitchell, that's what we do, right? We save it from here and then we will find it under default query pack.
Yeah, correct.
Okay, now if I want to click on query, then I will click on new query. Okay, and then where will I find this query? How can I find this query now? Mitchell?
You'll have to go to
Okay, so
queries.
you will click on
again.
queries here. That's what I clicked on. And then I have selected a query pack already. Okay, guys, no worries. Triveni, you can connect with connect with Mijun. Mijun will tell you. Otherwise, first thing in the morning, I will show you that how do we look for query, because this is just not working.
Yeah, I will check with Mijun Rakul. Thank you.
Okay, no worries. It should be in the query pack. Okay, it is here. Default query pack. You select the default query pack and you will see all the queries from this pack, and you will see your query also once it loads. All right. Probably I'll show you on Monday. Let me know if you have any other questions.